You are listening to The Robert Scott Bell Show.
These days, it's more important than ever to know where our food and supplements come from. That's why at Plus CBD Oil, we believe it is critical to manage every step of the supply chain process. It all starts with certified hemp seeds. Our hemp grows tall, like bamboo, and is harvested within 3 months. After harvest, the hemp is dried and sent to our CO2 extraction facility, where our raw formula is extracted. The extracted oil is then lawfully imported to our state-of-the-art in-house laboratory in San Diego, California. There, we convert our raw formula into our total plant complex and gold formula oils. Our oils are then used to formulate our award-winning Plus CBD oil product line. The products are then tested for cannabinoid content and the absence of harmful substances. But we go one step further. We then send our products to a third-party laboratory to verify concentration, quality, and safety. After that, the products have finished their journey and are ready to be shipped to your local health food store. Because at Plus CBD Oil, we believe how you do anything is how you do everything. That's why, from seed to shelf, we are committed to providing safe and effective hemp CBD products for you and your loved ones. It's our promise to you. Learn more about our commitment to full traceability at pluscbdoil.com.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
I listen to get accurate, up-to-date information. I've learned so much from him. It is awesome. It's the best entertainment that I've found.
You rock the health world. Keep it up. I love you.
Now, the voice of health, freedom, and liberty, here's Robert Scott Bell.
Really big show we got lined up for you today on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Welcome, one and all. This is the place for health, freedom, and healing liberty, like nowhere else in broadcast media. And Super Don making it sound so good. And hour two, we've been trying to get this guy on for a while. Dr. Shiva, he's known as. Fascinating backstory, if there ever was one. Really excited to have him on the second hour. Get a little bit more of that backstory, fill out the gaps in our knowledge base, and address what his focus is on. Truth, Truth, freedom, and health. Truth, freedom, and health. Great 3 words. Love them. No problem with them at all. So we'll hit that in hour two. First hour, though, we've got to hit or be hit by, if you will, the propaganda. It's so desperate now that they would utilize tragedies on behalf of their program that causes tragedies to cause more tragedies. It's kind of weird when you think about this. When you wake up, hashtag woke, however you describe it, how we describe it probably different than the millennials and post-millennials do, but you become aware of cause and effect links that the powers that be, pro-propagandists of the pharmaceutical church, you begin to see links, cause and effect links. You begin to identify them. You begin to utter them. You begin to ask questions about them. And rather than being met with scientific engagement, wow, that's an intriguing story you're telling me, Mrs. or Mr. whoever. Let's look into what was going on around that time and try to rule things out, rule things in, and figure it out. You're met with derision. Now, what am I talking about? You observe, following a pediatric well baby visit, that your perfectly developing, healthy child becomes less than that, reverts, different things happen, high-pitched screaming, high-intensity fevers, you name it. Worst scenarios, of course, the baby dies or the child dies. And if you bring up the timing, these are the things that occurred. Because, if I'm confronted with someone that, reaches out to me for help or questions and says, hey, this happened to me. And I've got a great example of that later in this show. Something that it was an answer to a question of the day yesterday. And having ruled out certain things by his own accord in this question of the day, I was left with, well, have you thought about this? And he wrote back and said, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And he explained why. And I'm going to get into that. But this goes into the engaging, inquiring mind, right? Inquiring minds want to know. If you see an event and you want to understand that event, you want to explain that event, would you not search any and everything that may even have remote connections to it? And if you began to ask questions and found out that all your questions were fine except in one particular area where you're met with derision, anger, hatred, scorn, disdain, censorship, would you think, well, that's definitely not it then? Because as you can see by their violent opposition to me asking the question specific to that cause potentially being related, it was like outrageous. So why would I pursue this any further? Because obviously it's not that. No, anybody with a lick of sense would say, well, that was weird. Of all the things I brought up, nobody had a problem until I started saying, hey, you know what? We had a well baby visit. The child had X number of vaccines, and then this happened. And it's the only thing that they say, well, that couldn't possibly be the case. Everything else is, maybe. Especially if you bring up genetics. And it's, oh, yeah, definitely it's genetics. Wait, did you do any tests? No, we know it's that. Or they say, we don't know what it is, but we know it's not vaccines. Really? Of all the things that it could be, you're ruling them out? Where's the study? Oh, they've been studied. Oh, the studies have been done. Oh, yeah, of course they are. You've heard the mantra, vaccines are safe and effective. The science is settled. And of course, you should at that point shut your inquiring mind down. You should stop critical thinking because you've been warned. That's the area you cannot ask questions. You cannot criticize. Remember, I said this. You want to know who's in charge? You want to know who's in control? Simple. Find out who or what you can't criticize in the town square. The equivalent of the town square today is what? Social media. Of course, you could go into the mainstream media and try to do it as well, but it's the one thing they won't cover. Why? A national story like New Jersey, with thousands of people surrounding the Capitol just a week or so ago. I didn't see any visuals. I mean, there were some newspapers that did cover it eventually. But think of the power of video, of seeing living, breathing humans gathered together, chanting, singing, drumming, holding hands, cheering, whistling, making drum, whatever. That they did not see fit. Even Tucker Carlson on Fox News, who's a guy that has a lot of critical thinking skills intact, didn't cover the story, as far as I know. He was tweeted. I know somebody's following those tweets and nothing on Fox News about it. The place where you'd say, well, they might do it. No. What did RFK Jr. say about the guy heading up, Rupert Murdoch heading up, I think it was, or one of his underlings, heading up Fox News at the time? If I cover this story the way you say I should, RFK Jr., I will get a call. No, he said I would get a call from Rupert Murdoch. Yeah, so it was one of the underlings. It might have been Roger Ailes. In fact, it might have been Roger Ailes. And he said, no, we can't do that because 70% of our advertising coming from Big Pharma. So we get to this point. We figure out, well, how do we counter that? We counter that by telling our stories. And there are a lot of stories to tell. The first story to tell is not a really happy story. It comes out of Toronto, Canada. Our friends up north, when I say the frozen tundra, they love that because it's a little bit of a redundant statement, frozen tundra of Canada. But no, it's cold in other places. It's true. Check this story out. The flu shot crusader. Jill Promoli's 2-year-old son died suddenly of the flu, apparently. Now, they didn't know this initially. I'm going to go through this story with you to kind of make some semblance of sense about the conclusion that this is a disaster. This is a tragedy. I've got nothing but love for this, compassion for this woman, this family that lost her son in this way. But she decided afterwards to educate the world, if you will, or Toronto, about the importance of flu shots, flu vaccines, or any number of vaccines. Now, she's not a doctor. She's a photographer specializing in wedding and lifestyle shoots. So, again, this is not a doctor coming out and pretending to be propagandist. This is someone who lost a child in a tragedy. She has a daughter and I think 2 twin sons. And the daughter apparently got the flu but recovered within 24 hours. And later that week, one of her sons, the twins Jude, woke up with a low-grade fever. No other symptoms. Still seemed like his usual gleeful self, low-grade fever. So the mom was not worried. Again, it's reasonable, low-grade fever. You don't panic necessarily. And they had a quiet morning at home after lunch. She put the twins down for a nap. And Jude was even singing before he fell asleep. So they went to go wake him up, and he seemed to be asleep, tried to wake him, but he wouldn't wake up, and he wasn't breathing. She called 911. People were all there. Everybody's there trying to wake this baby up. And tragedy of tragedies, this young baby died. So there's no making light of this situation, nor would I attempt to do so. As a parent, you've got to feel for this family, this mom and the dad, and say, how horrible was it? Now, at that point in time, they had no idea what happened. You know, when they asked, well, what killed him? Doctors didn't know. They had an autopsy, still no answer. And the coroner initially told her that the only thing wrong with him was that he's not alive anymore. I mean, it's like great moments in Duh, right? It's like, what do we know? We don't know. So they did a second stage autopsy, and it would take months for the results to come back. And those months later, let's see what happened here. Okay, here, I'm going to go so you can see this. I'm not making this stuff up. This is an actual article in Toronto about this tragedy. The coroner called, obviously it was a tragedy. You know what the coroner calling. And he says this, I don't know how to tell you this, but Jude died from influenza B. And the mom says, wait, that doesn't make sense. Now, okay, when we think of the flu and dying from the flu, do we not think of intense symptoms? I mean, the only thing that was showing was a low-grade fever, a mild something, but otherwise normal, healthy function. No overt apparent gastrointestinal distress. Nothing's mentioned here. No respiratory distress. Nothing's mentioned here. Again, I don't have access to all of the files, but I'm just going on this article, which it's a fascinating article. Just if you detach from it, it's a tragic article, no doubt, that the end result happened in a young boy dying. But they use this and they start going into the flu, how you die from the flu, how it's really infectious and dangerous, and on, and a little bit about the immune system, and then a little bit about vaccination. And I'm just going through this article because there was a key point in here that's kind of like what? What happened here? Let me see if I can find. I'm going to scroll back on something I sent to Super Don earlier so I can read it correctly, because it's a big article, a long article. Yes, it didn't make sense. If he had the flu, why hadn't it shown? Okay, again, so, and also, they'd all gotten their flu shots. That's the key point. I apologize that I'm delayed. I mean, there's so much going through my head, including the emotions that I feel for this family losing a child. They'd gotten their flu shots. I'm going to show you just again. Once again, I want you to be sure that I am not exaggerating, extrapolating on this article. It was right after that. The flu, it didn't make any sense. They'd all gotten their flu shots. They always did. Jude had no respiratory distress, no cough. Wasn't that part of the flu? If he'd had the flu, wouldn't he have at least looked like he had the flu? But no, he had been fine. Then he was gone. Now, if I add my perspective into this, I say, yeah, I think that it is a reasonable thing to say, like this mom asked, how is it that this happened? You tell me that he died of the B strain of a flu, an influenza virus. I would then ask the coroner, how much of this stuff relative to the other body fluid, so to speak, was there? Did you use PCR? We mentioned this on Sunday's broadcast with John Rappaport, and it's important. It's a distinction that needs to be made, because without it, we're dealing with partial information, because there are holes in this story that don't make sense, and even the mom agreed they don't make sense. Was it that there was exposure, and would that be enough? Because unless there was massive, rapidly replicating viruses, millions upon hundreds of millions, how can you claim that is the cause of death? Now, could there be cytokine storms, immune cascades that created a scenario that overwhelmed the system? Sure, there's any number of things that could have happened here. And I don't have the information. But let's go to the story again, as this mom, Promoli, now becomes a flu vaccine crusader. After the death of her son, despite her whole family having been vaccinated, with the argument being that If everybody was vaccinated, then this tragedy wouldn't have happened. But that belies logic and common sense, because if we applied this idea of herd immunity, which has never been proven to occur from a vaccination or a vaccination campaign, only from a naturally occurring burning out of a cycle of an infectious agent in a community. But even if it were to be granted a vaccine-induced, if we will, herd immunity, how many, or what would be the percentage, the magic number of flu shots that have to be given in a community in order to achieve that so nobody would have it nor spread it? And the answer is there's no number. Because the flu shot each and every year, by their own admission, at best 50 to 70%, but we have pointed out year upon year that it is well below 50, 40, 30, sometimes 20, 17, 13%. Effective. Now, effectiveness doesn't mean you don't get the flu. It means they've elicited an antibody response to the circulating strain, which they guess on. Yeah, they call it an educated guess. I call it a democracy, a democratic vote. Now, part of the story here is, Super Don, is this also one where there were some nasty kind of statements made to her since she came out as a pro-vaccine, pro-flu shot person? Because she went all the way up to Trudeau, and said, hey, get a flu shot, make it public. Everybody should see you doing it. Isn't that Super D? She's really become kind of a cause celeb due to this tragedy of her son dying. And I think part of the story I'm reading here is a blowback on people who are not in favor of her campaign, trying to say they're being mean, they're being nasty. They're calling her, I don't know. Do you have some of that in front of you? Some of the things that she was called?
Some of the and this is the Toronto one. Some of the comments here were pretty. I'm not even going to repeat them because they're at least in the story here.
Yeah.
There were some mean vulgar things that were said.
Yeah.
Including one where it said, and this is one that I hadn't heard this from anybody else but you, about I will not light my child on fire to keep yours warm.
Well, and what is the concept there? Is that if there's risk, there must be choice. And you're asking me to vaccinate my child to protect potentially yours or some other child I don't know. And what if my child is the one that is harmed or dies from the vaccine, right? And so it's a valid statement, I believe, defending individual liberty, defending the child that is yours. Doesn't mean you don't like the other child, but heck, I'm not risking my child in that way for yours. Not that I don't like your child, and I think it's legitimate, but apparently that statement was made around the time, at least the way that this article is trying to cachéing it, as if that was around the time that they had cremated their son, which is horrible. Yes. Horrible. If like somebody does that, that's not what you say.
That's not what they meant when they said that.
No, I don't believe so either.
Yeah.
So I look at this and I like the slant is wrong, and I just have to ask the question again, being as kind and compassionate and loving as I possibly can be for someone who lost their child. That to say, my whole family was vaccinated, yet they claim my son died from the flu that we hardly even knew he had. How do you conclude then I must go on a campaign so that everybody gets a flu shot, despite the fact that even if 100%, 110, 200, 2,000% of the people got it, there is no way to definitively stop this so-called spread of these viruses because the flu shot doesn't work and can't work the way they claim it. I mean, if they're honest about it. And so that, that's the big concern I have about this. And it's hard because the moment you tackle the issue, they say you're uncaring, you're attacking this poor woman who lost their son. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying I would draw a different conclusion with all of the facts when they be known, and still some of the facts we don't know, right? What really killed this boy? I don't know that it was the actual flu. What other things had been going on? I don't know. But the flu shot itself and the mercury contained within it, if indeed they got a mercury-containing flu shot, could set the stage for a cascade of events that are that tragic. It is not unprecedented. The National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, we report every quarter the deaths associated, the injuries associated, and flu shot seems to be number one on the list. Every quarter we report on this, Super Don. So, I'm not going to attack this woman. Not going to do it. I'm just saying that the conclusions that are being drawn are all wrong. And, of course, they use the media in this way as an attack dog against anti-vaxxers, as opposed to let's ask good questions that investigative journalists should be asking about the scenario and the conclusions that are drawn from it.
Well, and this is a common thing that you see in the news. In fact, there's another one that has made a bigger noise than this one. This is a pediatrician that when there's a video thing, an app that you can get on your phone that it's very popular with the teenagers and stuff, called TikTok.
Yes, I've been hearing a lot about TikTok.
Well, and I'll tell you what, TikTok really has gotten a bad rap for quite a while. For if you go and you look, especially when Facebook was doing advertisements for TikTok, and it really had kind of a weird, creepy, pedophile kind of a thing that you kind of you know, it was like all these men and older men were just like all about these little teenagers doing these videos and stuff like that. So it really has kind of a bad reputation to begin with.
Okay.
But in any case, it's one that is very popular with the younger generations.
Sure.
And so this pediatrician, this Nicole Baldwin, she decided to do a TikTok video talking about how vaccines don't cause autism. So
I saw this. And in fact, it's making mainstream news everywhere now, which means it's like one of those things. It's like, hey, take advantage of this. This pediatrician made a snarky video pointing out as things would pop up to some kind of dancey tune music, being all goofy and silly. But really, you could tell the snark. And at the end, it says vaccines don't cause autism. And so there were a lot of moms out there, especially warrior moms, who have had children diagnosed into the autism spectrum or worse, vaccine injury, basically did versions of that to point back at her. I don't know if maybe it's considered mocking, but pushing back on a pediatrician who is not referencing science, as we know, but just simply going, hey, I'm going to do something cute to target the kids because these kids, all the kids are doing TikTok. And she went out and did that. So now it's playing everywhere. So here's the story about it. And of course, the headline is not that she did it. It's that she's getting death threats after posing pro-vaccine video on TikTok, reassuring young people that they don't cause autism. Again, targeting children, young people, not with science, but with a cutesy little TikTok video with music. And, you know, listen, some of the moms out there are rightfully angry at her because they trusted pediatricians on these issues. There's this Nicole Baldwin. You can see the image if you're watching on the show. I got it up. TikTok. She tried. This one struck a nerve. She says, hashtag vaccinate your kid. Vaccines work. Some docs. I don't know what the some docs or so me docs means as far as a hashtag. And so you'll see the images. And she's just like a authoritarian. I mean, she's just, maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but the sense that I get while watching this, I was kind of, my stomach was like going, ooh, nah, yeah, I don't, yeah, no. I wouldn't like to be in the same room with that woman. She's just too, I mean, I guess I can be snarky too. I don't know, but not good. But the problem is, and I want to show everybody this, Super Don, this video that caused such a hullabaloo in the media going, what a hero doctor. And for the moms and dads out there, like, what a cad. But I'm concerned because we get tagged and we get banned because of copyright infringement on music. Now, she has put out her TikTok, so it's public domain, and I believe it's fair use. But if we play it with the song she chose, we'll probably get tagged and banned. So is there a way that we can work around this?
Yeah, I just, I thought, well, what song could I use, that was kind of upbeat like the one that she used, which is some rap song. I don't know what it is. I'm an old guy now. I don't listen to that crap.
Yes.
But so I was digging through the music I had, and you know what? I came across a Mike Adams song.
Okay.
So I thought, why not put this to Mike Adams' song "Vaccine Zombie"?
That's what I saw. Yeah, I hear it immediately.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it works. It's
perfect. It actually puts proper context into what you're about to witness. A pediatrician, I think the world's most dangerous profession, pediatrics in the Western world, allopathic medicine that targets healthy children for injection with toxic components. Oh, don't say toxins. That's one of those buzzwords. You don't know what you're talking about, Robert. Well, go to the World Health Organization and ban them, because they're asking questions about these things too, because they know the studies hadn't been done, or if they have the data, they haven't collated it, put it together, and referenced it for those that need to know, which is all of us. So, all right. So what's this doctor's name? Dr. Nicole Baldwin. This is not an attack on her, but we have to play copyright safe music that we won't get banned with. Her TikTok is in the public domain. It's on news cycles everywhere. So we're under fair use. We're going to show you her version of it with a little bit modified with music that we will not get banned by, thanks to Mike Adams, the health ranger. So accompanied by a song that she probably would not have chosen. I'll admit, she would not have chosen this for her TikTok video, but I think it's actually more appropriate. So give a quick watch and listen now.
I got my psych drugs, they talk back to me. My medical myths are like fact to me. Cause everything I know came from TV. Everything they say on the CDC is true. You see, you have to agree with the words of a vaccine zombie.
OMG, that was so appropriate. That was so accurate. So you see all the little things. Now, I wish we had the others to play. A lot of other moms and people have come up with their own version of what vaccines do cause and what has happened in their lives. But yeah, I mean, doesn't it? I'm not trying to overinterpret the look, but I know I have a bias, an internal bias, and I'm overt. We acknowledge our bias in this regard. But you just look at this authoritarianism that she comes across with, like snarks, like I know better than you, and she's targeting kids with this information. I don't like attacking people, but goodness gracious, that was amazing. Well, tying it the appropriate song like that. The song makes the video work.
Well,
about a vaccine zombie. Super Don has done it again.
Anyway, you take the story that we opened with, you put this one with it, and you see these every once in a while, and the takeaways that I'm getting from these stories as I see them, and they're not that uncommon, is a couple years ago. I'm trying to remember, how long ago was it when what's the late night comedian guy that was such a dick to everybody? Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, Kimmel, right.
How many years ago was it that he did that skit with the doctors about, you need to get your vaccine? That was like a couple years ago?
It was a few years now, easily. And of course, it was authoritarianism, classic authoritarianism. Doctors know, what do you know? You're just a parent. Yeah. And Kimmel played right into that.
This was right around the Disneyland measles thing. Mm-hmm. And so now, prior to that, we've been talking about vaccines for a long time, really long time. But prior to that Disneyland measles thing, it was, it really wasn't like a gigantic thing in the media. You didn't really see it talked about a whole lot. When the Disneyland measles thing happened, suddenly everybody in the media became a-holes about it. And they started attacking anybody who questioned vaccines.
That they thought it would work. I mean, they thought it would work. Shame you in the
They were calling out the moms, and people were doxing people, and they were trolling people's pages and death threats.
But it backfired. It's backfiring on them now.
Yeah, it's just like, but where was the media then? Where was the media going, you know what? Oh my goodness, this holistic doctor is getting, harassed on his Facebook page or whatever like that.
I see what you're saying there. Yeah.
You didn't see that going on. Now, now you do. Now, if somebody comes out and does something like this doctor and people talk crap about her, listen, first off, get the hell off the internet if you don't want people to say negative things about you when you are commenting and jumping into the middle of the mosh pit of vaccines. Okay,
yeah, it's true. If she comes in and says, "I'm so shocked. I'm so how outraged. What did you think? What did you think was going to happen? Seriously,
about me. They're giving me negative reviews on the. You know how many times people have come out with documentaries, books, and things like that on Amazon, and suddenly all the Provax people jump on there and put a bunch of BS reviews and trash it. So listen. I personally, I can appreciate getting in there and throwing some blows on things. I've done it in the past, not so much anymore, because I like to try and be above the fray, and stuff. So listen, is it a good idea to be a jerk on the internet. No, it's not. Can I understand why, after so many years of being pushed around and bullied by people for questioning vaccines, that somebody might be inclined to go, you know what, screw you, I'm going to kick you in the balls now, because you're I'm going to defend myself. I can understand it. Do I think that there might be a better way to do this?
Yeah.
Maybe, probably. But, listen, don't put yourself out there if you don't want people, don't throw mud if you don't want to get dirty. Okay.
Well, and to your point, Super Don, I mean, if you go out and you complain after going into the vaccine fray that you're being attacked unfairly, whatever, or you don't like the tone of what your point, Super Don, very well brought up. Where was the media when we were being attacked, when moms were being, and they still are to some degree. And of course, they're trying to cool down the rhetoric, saying this is not good. Yet the World Health Organization level saying the anti-vaxxer label didn't work. Let's stop using it. It's dividing. It's dividing. Of course, what did you think it was designed to do? It was designed to divide and ostracize and hopefully get them back because they don't want to put up with the harassment. This is not going to work. Why not engage intellectually? And if this doctor, authoritarian pediatrician says vaccines don't cause autism, hey, show me the studies. Of course, the only study that has ever been done relates to the MMR, and that's a bit twisted in the way they did it, but there's no other vaccine that they've actually studied related to autism, and they just make the blanket statements. In fact, there's...
And let me just interrupt for just a moment, then we can go to a break, because I know we're already past the bottom of the hour. But tell me, are you as sick as I am of every time they put an article out, the only thing they ever bring up when it comes to science is Andrew Wakefield? That's it. They always go, vaccines don't cause autism. Vaccines don't cause autism. And you know what? 90% of the time, nobody's saying, hey, vaccines cause autism. They're saying mercury, aluminum, adjuvants. They're bringing up all this other stuff that they don't want to acknowledge. They don't want to acknowledge any of the scientific studies that are out there that are showing that those things are a problem. The only thing they ever retreat to is debunked, Andrew Wakefield stripped of his license in a study. That's it. And you know what? This movement has progressed and evolved beyond vaccines cause autism. There are so many things to talk about. All of the things that are wrong with a vaccine, the things that are in a vaccine, the problems that are being caused, the illnesses and the symptoms that are being talked about here, has nothing to do with Andrew Wakefield's study from back in whatever the hell it was that they always talk about. They never acknowledge anything other than that. And that just drives me crazy, because somebody could come out there and say, you know what, aluminum is bad and it caused degenerative diseases and symptoms, stuff like that. And their response is, but Andrew Wakefield, no. We're not talking about Andrew Wakefield. Why don't we look at all of the 27 other things that are wrong with a vaccine and discuss those things? But they always go to Andrew Wakefield.
Well, and the authoritarianism is
Jenny McCarthy
dripping. Dripping from this doctor. Obviously, as a pediatrician, she says, I know that vaccines are safe. And I think there's a lot of misconception out there about them, Baldwin told. Baldwin, you're promoting misconception. And like the straw man in The Wizard of Oz, if you only had a heart, or the Tin Man, if you only had a brain and you'd start using it, you wouldn't be playing authoritarian games with young people on TikTok. We'll be back with more powerful healing on the Robert Scott Bell Show after this. We've got more flu updates. We've got Dr. Shiva scheduled for hour 2. In the meantime, this doctor, as any pediatrician, would benefit from better education, and I would recommend that they look into the Trinity School of Natural Health, as I recommend for all of y'all. And we'll be right back.
It seems like every fitness program today offers you a lot of promises. You've seen the marketing, the fad diets, the secret pill, the magic programs, lose 100 pounds in 3 months. Unfortunately, most of those trends do very little to actually support your body or your health, and some of them are even harmful to your body. At Trinity, we look at fitness in a much more realistic and honest approach. Our Holistic Fitness Specialist program emphasizes a full body strategy for the fitness professional. We focus on whole body nutrition, proper exercise selection for the individual, and supplementation that is actually beneficial to the body and not toxic. In this course, you will learn the physiological benefits of exercise, breath work, and mindfulness, dysbiosis and the connection to weight gain, performance, and recovery, exercise selection, intensity, and frequency, condition-specific exercise recommendations, fitness-based nutrition and supplementation for performance and recovery, popular diet plans including the ketogenic diet and their applications, emotional components of health, and natural performance-enhancing strategies. Fitness is more than just muscle strength and endurance. It's about improving the fitness of the physical body as well as the intellectual and emotional health, your whole self, body, mind, and spirit. If you have any questions or feel like this is the right program for you, please email or call us today and get started on your journey towards transforming the world.
All right, well, y'all, we're having some fun now. Again, another stroke of genius from Super Don, tying that TikTok to the Vaccine Zombie song by Mike Adams. That was perfect. All right, y'all, please share the show. And if you're watching us on any of the social medias, thumbs up, share it. We don't have PR agents. You are our PR agents. And you share it because you like it, you like us, and you want the message to land where it needs to land. That is an empowering message of health, freedom, and healing liberty. Next hour, Dr. Shiva is going to talk about truth, freedom, and health. I believe those are his three kind of platforms. He's running for Senate in Massachusetts as well. Fascinating guy. Can't wait to interact and ask some questions, see where we go. On the flu, we've got some more information about flu, and here's a headline that'll grab you from Fox News. Why you might catch the flu twice this season. Yeah, anything you can do once, you should do it twice. What do you mean twice? I thought if I got a flu shot, everything would be all right. Well, they admit the flu shot may not work in every case, and that even if you had the flu once, you could get it again. But I thought you couldn't. Now you have antibodies. Well, that blows that theory out of the water. At least 13 million cases of the flu have already been diagnosed, they claim. CDC, believe them, they're the CDC. Cautioning that those who have already battled the virus may be at risk of getting it a second time as another strain gains traction across the U.S. So what's the freaking point? I got to ask you. If it doesn't matter, what's the point? Even if you get the flu shot, you can get the flu. Because if you get the flu, the actual one, you could still get the flu again. They're really shooting themselves in the foot, whether it be with a needle or something else, as they reveal these realities that question the whole antibody theory of prevention of disease altogether, if not for the most part. Just because you have an antibody to a disease does not mean you are immune to it. That's a false assumption based on old science, shall I say? I think Dr. Shiva will bring in a little bit of that. I saw his 20-minute lecture on it. It was really good. Just very simple to understand, too. I love the way he brought it across. But this article acknowledges that you better what? You better be aware, be wary, be scared, be frightened. If they missed the right, the right strain, do you get another flu shot because you got the flu the first time anyway? What's their takeaway message here? You've got all these odd ingredients coming together. And it's funny that they use this term. I'm going to go ahead and show you this article. This is Dr. William Schaffner, infectious disease specialist at Vanderbilt. We have all these odd ingredients coming together so that we have, at this juncture, an awful lot of flu with the potential for being as bad as our last bad year, if not worse. This season has turned a lot of what we know about the flu on its head. There's a lot we know, even more we don't know. Okay, they acknowledge, again, science isn't settled on the flu, much less the flu shot. What do? You've got a bad mismatch once again. They acknowledge, I'm not making it up. It's not Robert Scott Bell being anti-flu shot. It's just what we report on every year. And there's no acknowledgement of the law of the terrain. Going back to the opening story, that was a tragedy of losing someone, a child to the claim to the flu after the fact, months later. But what about the law of the terrain? What about other things that children are exposed to, or adults for that matter? We talk about the latter part of any given calendar year, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, from Halloween to Thanksgiving to Christmas and all the parties and all the indulgence and all the abuse of food, even good quality food, creating an imbalance in our microbiome. damage and imbalance in the microbiome, the home for the immune system, 70% or more of it. And no mention of any of the things that would actually prevent viral activity from taking hold in your body and creating these scenarios or symptoms or these death-risking diagnoses that they claim the influenza is. And I'm not saying nobody's ever died with an influenza virus rapidly multiplying, replicating in their body. But no mention at all about the law of the terrain. No mention at all about the health of the immune system. It's all about the Holy Grail. Do you have the antibody or not? And even if we screwed up, you know what? It's still better to get the shot because the flu you get might be less intense or last fewer days. I mean, they say it, but there is no peer-reviewed scientific literature to back it up. And then they call us anti-science. Well, yeah, even if the flu shot didn't matter, it's still better. It's still the best thing we got going. Really? How do you know? Do you know anything about botanical medicine? Do you know anything about selenium in terms of its ability to stop viruses from doing their thing? Do you know anything about the use of bioactive forms of silver safely in the body because it stops viral replication on contact? Do you know anything about echinacea? Do you know anything about homeopathic medicine? Oh, no, that's beyond the pale, Robert. Now you've gone and stepped into non-material realities that are just kind of Harry Potter-like. You know, 1798 Jenner and his smallpox, cowpox vaccine, that gave rise or birth to the anti-vaccine movement because they saw the disaster that was. People losing their limbs and losing their life from the sepsis that came about, from the filth that they try to throw in your body. And now, in all of the science of the 21st century, they're still arguing that filth in a syringe done with high-tech medical white coat lab suddenly it's not filth. Unknown genetic material from animals, aborted fetal cell lines, heavy metals, contaminants that have been identified by other independent labs not conflicted with pharmaceutical conflicts of interest in any way, and they're finding nanomaterials, heavy metals, glyphosate, an antibiotic if there ever was one, anti-life, destroying the tight junctures of the gut. And you're injecting this stuff. And you're going to say, well, get the shot's the best thing, and even if it's not the right antigen to trigger the antibody we want, it could still make the flu you get less severe. Don't let them get away with that. They're making it up. They got nothing about it. It's marketing. It's PR. Hey, we're the authoritarians. Because of that, you don't ask them questions. You don't challenge them. Well, you do. We do. And if you want to live, you might consider not injecting yourself with this garbage and recognize the complexity of the immune system. And how it doesn't rely upon antibodies solely. I mean, it's fine to have one, but you don't have one, it doesn't mean you're going to die, much less succumb to the ailment, illness, disease, or what they call pathogen, virus or otherwise. So you could get it again, but still go get your flu shot. I mean, it's the same old story. What about Tamiflu? You want some of that? Well, guess what? There's an insider whistleblower doctor. He's claiming that Tamiflu is what we've called it for years here, scammy flu. He said the Tamiflu, the maker Roche, has defrauded the American taxpayer to the tune of billions, 1.5 billion. When the government, remember, they stockpiled this during the fear of the next influenza debacle. It's going to be the Spanish flu of 1918 all over again. We got to get Tamiflu, stockpile it. And of course, they spent your money. You gave them permission, didn't you? You're a taxpayer. You're like, you wrote that check, or they took it and you never saw it. And then they turned it over. They either printed more out of nothing, or they just took what you gave them and sent it over to Roche Pharmaceuticals, Hoffman or Roche. And they bilked you. Tamiflu does not do what Roche promised, according to the attorney of this doctor, the whistleblower. Roche hid the fact for many years by selectively citing its studies and suppressing the data about Tamiflu. The company utilized lobbyists, key opinion leaders, and ghostwriters to promote Tamiflu with a deceptive premise or promise to governments fearful of flu pandemics. The lawsuit alleges that Roche was well aware that Tamiflu is an ineffective product for fighting influenza pandemics, according to attorney Clayton Halunin of the Minneapolis-based whistleblower law firm. Yet Roche masterfully marketed this drug to fill Roche's coffers at taxpayer expense. This is precisely the type of corporate behavior that the False Claims Act is designed to stop. So if you see this, you can become a whistleblower like Dr. Thomas Jefferson. How cool is that? He's the one that brought this up. This guy, he has researched neuraminidase inhibitors like Tamiflu for more than 2 decades. More than 2 decades. And your government has thrown in with what? The pharmaceutical church. Every broadcast mainstream media outlet, from the national news down to the localest of local news, with rare exception, if there are some, we try to spotlight them, are all promoting this agenda by saying, yep, we recognize the flu shot's not perfect, but get it anyway. And this is why. And then they just make something up. And the same way Tamiflu, at best, we've acknowledged in the peer-reviewed literature, can reduce the duration of an influenza outbreak in an individual by a matter of hours over the course of many days. And yet that comes at a high cost, especially for children who are suffering with hallucinogenic manifestations, seeing things, hearing things. And they banned it in Japan because of this. And still, Tamiflu, $1.5 billion profit from the U.S. taxpayer, stockpile it because the influenzas is coming back. Based on what? Are we living at a time like in 1918 following World War I? Soldiers malnourished, living in filth and squalor, poverty everywhere, experimental vaccines at the time, the indiscriminate use of aspirin as a new wonder drug, and how that impacted the suppression of fever, which is your body's normal and optimal response to burning out an invader, an intruder, something that shouldn't be there. You suppress all that, and let's say what other allopathic suppressive technologies or techniques or drugs do they use? Mercury-based compounds, topically or otherwise? In the meantime, you can go back in the peer-reviewed literature and find out that homeopaths and naturopaths or eclectic herbalists, they had a very low mortality rate in their treatment, which wasn't about suppressing symptoms, but about restoring the healing or curative powers of the body, of the immune system. That's what we do here. And they're outraged. How dare Robert Scott Bell promote the idea of actually strengthening your immune system by using the substances and energies of creation itself, or herself, or however you want to personify creation. Fascinating journey we're on, y'all. Between whistleblowers on Tamiflu to the scam of the flu shot. Now, what about Tylenol? Let's switch gears to Tylenol right now. Here's the story you need to know. California is considering declaring that common painkiller, the main ingredient, acetaminophen or paracetamol, if you're in different parts of the country or world listening. They're declaring Tylenol, or about to, potentially as another known carcinogen. Under Prop 65, they can basically say anything is a carcinogen. Of course, there's going to be some science to back it up. They're not going to go out there. Granted, you're going to say, well, it takes a lot of it, or whatever it does. But to list Tylenol, the main ingredient of Tylenol, as a carcinogen is fine. I got nothing against that. But how about recognizing its greater danger? Liver failure, acute liver toxicity and liver failure. Because you have acute liver toxicity and die, you never get old enough to have cancer. Not that I want anybody to get cancer just because they're aged, but it used to be considered a disease of very old age. Now cancer is occurring in children. It has been for a number of generations in the West. Whole cancer wards of hospitals are being dedicated to childhood cancers. And of course, it's not because children are living longer than they used to. That's absurd. That's insane. It's about toxicity. And yeah, if you utilize a little bit of Tylenol over time, yeah, I agree. Cancer can be the result. Why? Because you damage the main organ for detoxification in the body, the liver, and other cells, of course. You deplete the body's ability to produce glutathione. You deplete the body's store of selenium, the main defense from a mineral perspective to a lot of these things. And yes, cancer will manifest. But the bigger concern I have for Tylenol, acetaminophen, paracetamol is acute liver failure, toxicity. Number one reason why people check in to the ER with acute liver failure. Number one, nothing comes close. So if California describes it as a potential cause of cancer, is that going to stop people from taking Tylenol? No, because there are people that listen to the Robert Scott Bell Show that still take Tylenol. You know who you are. I've been warning you. You should be looking into other things to reduce inflammation safely, reduce pain safely. I know Tylenol is not technically a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. A lot of people just kind of lump them together. But reducing fever, antiemetics, there are so many ways to go. So many better ways to go. And, of course, CBD, cannabidiol, hemp. We've been talking a little bit about the pain reduction benefits of things like kratom. Pretty extraordinary what we're learning about kratom and experiencing. And these are the things you will not hear in the mainstream media unless they're deriding them, discouraging you, because they're not approved by the Fear and Death Administration. Again, appeal to authority. The FDA hasn't approved it. Oh, if that's the case, I'm interested. The FDA has approved that one? Bah, count me out. Going the other way. People learn. FDA-approved drug. Warning. Contains FDA-approved drug. Until you get there, you could be a victim of the third, second, or first leading cause of death, modern medicine, and all of their trappings since the Flexner Report of 1910. I'm getting a message from Dr. Shiva. Got to tell him it's live. Live. Boom. Sending him now. So we're almost, we still got a few minutes till the top of the hour, and we'll break on that. Super Don, any additions, subtractions to any of that while I pause for a refreshing break here? Breathe and have my mate tea, a little organic mate.
A refreshing break.
Mm-hmm.
Like a commercial for...
No, not a commercial. You can give a commercial. Hey, tell them about our Patreon page. Tell them about all the wonderful things you do on the Robert Scott Bell Show website.
All of the wonderful things. Well,
all of the wonderful things he does.
Yeah. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. What are all the wonderful things that we do on there? We've got the vaccines armed and dangerous seminar that you did with John Rappaport. That's up there in its entirety. You can totally just binge listen the entire thing. We've got lost episodes of the Robert Scott Bell Show, which I need to post some more of those with Andrew Wakefield and Liam Sheff and some people that I didn't even remember. Yeah. Betty Martini, that was like one that I was not familiar with. Apparently she's old school aspartame. But a lot of these interviews that you did with people that were on the air at one time but have been lost in the archives of the Robert Scott Bell Show and are no longer available on the internet. You got a downloadable chapter of the book and stuff. And we're talking about, we haven't done it yet, but we're talking about doing a live Q&A with Robert for the Patreon members. We'll be scheduling that soon. And who knows what else we'll be doing on there, but that's Patreon. You can get to the Patreon page over on the website. Click on that for as little as $4.99 a month. You can support the show and get a bunch of cool perks as well. What else?
If you're anxious, you can take a benzodiazepine drug. Benzos.
Oh.
Yeah. Final story of hour one. Check this out, y'all. You thought opioids were a problem as we talk about Big Pharma. You're just picking on Big Pharma. Well, it's hard not to. I mean, look, with all the messages coming through the pharmaceutical industrial complex and their minions in the media that have to cover or forced to cover stuff eventually, check this story out. Let me see if I can pull it up now. Here it is. Yeah. Okay. It's this one's come through CNN Health. Oxymoron a little bit. It says benzodiazepines might be a hidden element of the U.S. overdose epidemic, and doctor visits for prescriptions are increasing. So benzos, they found this class of central nervous system depressants prescribed about 65.9 million office-based doctor visits, a rate of 27 annual visits per 100 adults, analyzing the National Ambulatory Medical Care Survey published Friday on the U.S. CDC's website. And benzos are known also as alprazolam, sounds like Shazam, diazepam, and irazepam. I mean, we don't ever deal with this stuff. Supposedly on a short-term basis, but how often do they get for acute anxiety on a longer-term basis? And that's where you get the risk. And the greatest increased risk is when it happens in concert with opioids. And so the opioids are bad enough, but now we got to bust the benzos. And why I say that, better living through pharmaceutical chemistry, for some, it's very profitable, but to your health, it's very detrimental. And this is the concern we have, knowing what we know, that there are always options for dealing with anxiety. We talk about from the mildest of chamomile tea or chamomile tea to increasing magnesium levels from whole food sources, relaxing you, to utilizing cannabinoids, particularly CBD when needed, or, now, well, there's chamomilla in homeopathy. There's passiflora, passion flower in homeopathy. There are a number of things. If you have anxiety associated with fear of public speaking or a test coming up, you can take remedies like gelsemium, which is yellow jasmine. There's so much more that we can do besides resorting to benzos on top of opioids that they didn't ask you, hey, by the way, are you on an opioid before I prescribe to you a benzo? And then the double whammy can result in double the deaths or more. And so they're finally bringing this thing up. So we've got more and more realities that are explaining, revealing themselves to you, that better living through pharmaceutical chemistry is just altering life towards a decay and a dependency on more pharmaceutical interventions. And where they acknowledge that modern medicine is the third leading cause of death, I argue it's the second or first, because the very toxic poisons known as drugs and or vaccines are the primary, along with diet, and lifestyle, but very much along, you can't now separate them out. Causes of the number 2 and 1 leading cause of death, cancer, heart disease, and they're pretty much neck and neck. So we're getting a message here, Super Don, that Dr. Shiva needs about 10 minutes. He just finished a meeting, and I know we're up against the top of the hour break. Should we just carry on and do the break in about 10 minutes when he's available and connected? We can just carry on with our show. It's okay. I don't mind.
We are in control, right, of the horizontal. We
and
control the vertical.
Yeah.
For those of you that remember that reference.
I would say let's do that. Are there any comments or questions coming in? We can just kind of float a little extra for hour one. What do you think?
We did have a comment of the day, if you remember.
Oh, right. Is it in the notes as well?
It's in the show. You might have to refresh it if you got the older version on there.
Okay, let's do it. Comment of the day. Bonus comment of the day coming in right about now.
You guys!
Hey, I tell you what.
Hey, here's an idea.
Hey, listen up, everybody. Excuse me.
I got something to say.
So if y'all remember yesterday on the show, we had a question coming in from Kealoha. Cool last, I think it's actually the name. Sounds like it's from Hawaii for sure. And he asked me about, I think it was a he, asked me about the nail bed, the thumbs had disconnected, if you will, from the bed halfway through. And they had tested it and they said it wasn't fungal. Like normally you'll see a fungal issue like that manifest that way. And I said, okay, if they've determined it's not that, I still recommended silver and silica, different things like that to regrow connective tissue. But I said, what I'm left with, and again, it's not a comprehensive thing. It just happened in real time as we took the question. This sounds like mercury. Is there anything that happened to you recently prior to this occurring, because it seemed to be more of a sudden onset than a gradual thing, that would indicate mercury could play a role here? There's almost nothing mercury can't do, even in minute doses. Look into the homeopathic materia medica. You'll understand they've known this for hundreds, if not thousands of years, but hundreds of years, the toxicity of mercury, even in minute amounts. And so the comment of the day is a follow-up from yesterday's answer to the question of the day. And let's find out, once again, how right Robert Scott Bell is, or was, or am. No, I'm not tooting my own horn. Just saying. It's funny to do that sometimes. Thank you, Robert, for responding to my question in yesterday's episode. I do remember getting a mercury-filled tooth pulled around the same time. You folks, you can't make this up. I didn't know. I don't know. But deductive reasoning, where is logic? Where is critical thinking? This is how I came to that conclusion. I could have been wrong, and I would have said if he came back, no, there's not. I was like, well, I don't know. But look what happened. I have over the last few years been getting dental work done at an office that does not use mercury, and they have been removing and replacing my old fillings with composite resin. Going to get me the heavy metal detox and silica now. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Everything you said makes complete sense. The power to heal is ours. Love you, brothers. Ke aloha. Ke aloha. So, Super Don, again, not to get cocky because I'm and go, hey, where are you looking? I'm here. I'm over here.
I got a dog barking over here.
I'm just teasing.
I was getting after the dog.
But you know what a diva, egomaniac kind of guy I am, right? I have to be right all the time. Nobody can point out anything that I do wrong, especially you, Super Don. But, I'm like going, all right, I do stuff on the fly here. People think, oh, I could go Dr. Google and look stuff up. But, no, this was an interesting case, and I was intrigued by it, talking about the thumb issue. And then in a day, we find out, yeah, indeed, again, and I'm not saying it's definitively the cause. I haven't done a double-blind placebo-controlled study on it, but we're coming to logical conclusions based on ruling out other things and what is the most likely cause.
Yeah, if you weren't dead on, it was a really odd coincidence that
But where
happened,
where is that in medicine where they are able to ask these questions? They don't. They have pharmaceutical horse blinders on. Like when they say it's anything but that. Well, how do you know it's not that? Well, I just know because they've been programmed.
Right.
As we talked about, high IQ idiots. They can go through school. They can get through tests. They are programmed because they realize if they start questioning the program, they will be drummed out of their profession. And once they're in the profession, the mere acknowledgement that vaccines can result in injury, and I'm willing to write an exemption now. We heard from Tim Boland that they're targeting Dickey Pan in California. The state is targeting the doctors who dare to write medical exemptions, proving my point that the ban on religious exemptions and Phyllis is a de facto ban on medical because they now target the doctors, and we're the bureaucracy. We're going to practice medicine without a license in the California state government, and we're going to point you out. You better, doctor, be wary because if you start writing one exemption, we're going to look into it. So who's going to write an exemption? And the point is, where do you get the idea that you have to ask permission to not be violated, to not be medically raped, injected? This is where we've gone so far off of the recognition of who you really are, who I really am, who, Super Don, you really are. A divine spark of creation, I would say of God, but that we answer not to government, but to God ultimately. And the question is, when do you recognize that government has superseded or placed itself in the position of your creator? And you begin to say, wait a second, I got to stop asking for permission not to opt out. I got to opt out. I got to ask, please can I opt out? No, I got to give you permission to opt me in. That's what our thinking is wrong on this whole vaccine thing. Oh, please, pretty please, can we not get the vaccine? So I'm probably at odds with most everybody on this one. I don't know. How'd we get here?
I wouldn't say that's true. But I know even you and I have had conversations in the past where people are just like, what are we going to do? We don't know what we're going to do. And I know it sounds very simple, but my answer was always just say no.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be inconvenient. Mm-hmm. Take a look at people like our friend Stephanie Lucrecio, right? She had to move. Now, not everybody can move. Not everybody has the ability to move. But there are ways to work around it.
Mm-hmm. By the way, K Aloha is on there.
In real time here.
Mm-hmm.
We got to give a shout out to our new patron.
We got a new patron?
I just got the thing just went ding. Michelle Cotterman is now a patron of the Robert Scott Bell Show.
Does that mean, Michelle, I can't make fun of you anymore? Because I love you dearly. You know that. And we love to tease you because you're so smart. And it's true. I'm not saying it because you're not, because you really are. But, Michelle, God bless you. Thank you for support. And we're one step closer to getting Super Don upgraded to computers that can actually do email, which apparently Dr. Shiva may have invented. Pretty fascinating, that guy. He's got like the original patents on that stuff.
And I'll tell you what, Robert, I didn't tell you about this.
What's
that? But once we are able to do that,
mm-hmm.
what that's going to do is that's going to free up a machine for me, which then I'm going to be able to dedicate to the 24-hour stream exclusively. I was thinking about this morning, where we were talking about, we want to do things with this 24-hour stream that we got and do something other than just doing replays of the Robert Scott Bell Show. Well, that would require a machine that would be exclusive to that service.
Mm-hmm.
And so by supporting us on Patreon, you will be getting us one step closer to being able to do something with that 24-hour stream where ultimately, in a perfect world, in the perfect picture that I have in my head, we're going to be able to take that stream and turn that into a 24-hour health freedom network that's going to have programming on it, in addition to the Robert Scott Bell Show, where you can tune in and you can hear what's going on in the news, the latest events and health related topics that are near and dear to our hearts. And I mean, it's a big thing a big endeavor, but I mean, imagine if you could tune into a 24-hour kind of thing like Fox News or something like that was focused on health freedom issues.
Well, right now it's just the Robert Scott Bell Show and some health freedom updates 24/7, right?
Although a lot of the health freedom organizations have kind of slacked off.
I know, here we are doing 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. Come on, health freedom organizations. Don't you got some extra time? By the way, here's the 24-hour stream you can always tap into at robertscottbell.com. You can press play on the player right there. Naturalnewsradio.com has it. Thanks to Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. You can listen on your phone. You can call in from the cell phone in the car if you don't have unlimited data plans. And you can play it through your Bluetooth on your speakers in your car. And, of course, archived through many different ways. We're played on digital formats, including Twitch, Mixer, Vaughn Live TV, D Live, Periscope, then later on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Health Radio, UK Health Radio, GCN on the Sundays, our broadcast radio show, SoundCloud, Brighteon, now even on Spotify. And you said on SoundCloud, we just had a massive influx of new listeners. Or I don't know where that came from. SoundCloud just blasted off suddenly?
Our SoundCloud activity doubled just like in a week. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but we've picked up some new people there. So, and that's great. I mean, it's surprising. But it's a good surprise. So yeah, we're very encouraged to see that kind of activity. The message seems to be getting out there.
Excellent. So let's see. I was looking. I think there were some comments coming through on our YouTube feed. Again, Michelle, happy to support the show. We love you, appreciate you, Michelle, so much. The work you're doing in Ohio is everybody should take example from that and try to emulate it in their own way in their own state, so that you don't have to. Thousands of people descend on the Capitol. If you do it, but by doing the relationship building that you do now, it becomes less of an issue that would happen. Let's see. Oh, Kealoha says he'll give us an update on the nail 6 weeks from now. Yeah, and then if it's not fully recovered, then we can talk about other things. And I haven't had a chance to stop and do a little homework myself, because there are homeopathic remedies that are very specific when you get into homeopathy. And Michelle, you know that are very unique to very specific things. And we can go off of general things. And, what I like about Dr. Shiva, among a number of things, that he's a systems guy. And this is how I got my homeopathic education, was understanding systems. That it wasn't just about nailing that right simillimum in a classical sense, in an acute, otherwise healthy individual, acute illness and ailment. But I'm dealing with, just as I did in my own body, chronic, debilitating, degenerative conditions from childhood, from almost childbirth and on, that required a different understanding of the world around us and the world within us. And that really embraces the concept of the law of the terrain. And with that, let's see if I can get Dr. Shiva on here. We're going to take a break on the Robert Scott Bell Show. I see his picture and I hear him, so we're going to do that. Now we're going to take our top of the hour break a little late, but I'm so excited that Dr. Shiva is going to join us, and we're going to go into some of these systems that I love to discuss as well, and get a little bit more of his backstory, because it's fascinating. Very exciting day on the Robert Scott Bell Show. Thank you all for being here. robertscottbell.com, the place for health, freedom, and healing liberty. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Remember, it's the God's honest truth. The power to heal is yours.
The Robert Scott Bell Show. The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Have you ever watched a movie with superheroes and villains? If so, you already understand the science of drinking hydrogen-enriched water and how to unlock true health. Allow me to explain. In our bodies, we have a natural struggle between superheroes and villains, with molecular hydrogen being the superhero and oxidative stress the villain. So how does knowing that give you the tools to unlock true health? Your body is naturally designed to fight oxidative stress through specific bacteria in the gut that creates hydrogen on their own. Pretty awesome, right? So why does this matter? Well, in most people, the hydrogen-creating bacteria is gone, and cancer and disease soon follow. So the real question is, why aren't we trying to fix this every day? Well, the answer is simple. It's hard. Even the most healthy of individuals who biohack take months or years to achieve this balance. But how do we get there without taking months or even years? After years of study and development, we discovered and designed the perfect technology that made it all possible. We call this technology Echo H2 water. Within minutes of drinking hydrogen-rich water from our Echo Hydrogen water machines, you are back in control, balanced, and feeling amazingly hydrated and healthy. Having your own Echo Hydrogen water machine is kinda like having your own team of superheroes on call, always available to fight the villains in your body. Pretty cool, right? But don't just take our word for it. Get your Echo H2 water machine today and quickly bring your body into balance with hydrogen.
The Robert Scott Bell Show.
I listen to get accurate, up-to-date information. I've learned so much from him. It is awesome. It's the best entertainment that I've found.
You rock the health world. Keep it up. I love you.
Now, the voice of health, freedom, and liberty, here's Robert Scott Bell.
All right, y'all, we've been waiting on this hour for a while because I've been so excited following this guy. New on the scene to me, but apparently he's been at it for a long time. Inventor of email, for goodness sake. Out of MIT, he's got more degrees that we joke than a thermometer. Very smart guy, coming all the way from India as a child to come to America and invested so much time in education to understand systems, biological systems, many different systems. And as a homeopath, my focal point is on systems. How do I restore systems to the body, the functionality and the interactivity of those systems? He's become an outspoken advocate for truth, health, and freedom. I think, I don't know, not necessarily in that order, truth, freedom, and health. And we appreciate him standing up for those in New Jersey and otherwise, standing up for their religious liberty to say, no, I will not be injected with that stuff. And there's more complexity to the immune system than just an antibody. Welcoming now to the Robert Scott Bell Show is Dr. Shiva. And if I pronounce your last name wrong, it'd be like every American that tried to do it. So Dr. Shiva, welcome.
Yeah, well, the way you pronounce my name is Ayadure, but you can just call me Dr. Shiva. That's fine. It's good to be here. Yeah.
Oh, it's great to have you on board. And like I said, your history, you've talked a lot about the caste system. And I don't think people in America, unless they've studied this concept, really understand it. I mean, we talk about class warfare, political stuff, but to have it so entrenched and embedded in a culture may be a little bit different than what we understand that you know about firsthand from growing up and having your family, parents, and everybody go through that system. And so bringing that to an understanding to America just from a starting point is fascinating to me.
Well, it takes you a while in life to process stuff, and it was only probably about 8 years ago, a very good friend of mine said, Shiva, it's hard for people to understand your journey and why you're so intense about certain things. And it's an interesting journey because when you look at these political movements, a lot of people have illusions about what it takes to actually win. And they have illusions about the nature of the enemy. For me, it took me a while to understand, not only growing up in India, but, what was interesting of the participation I got involved with Jersey is Jersey people are very, very different than Massachusetts people and California people.
Yeah.
In the sense they don't have political correctness. They're much more, straightforward.
They don't face.
They don't bullshit around. Okay. And you have a lot of movements where you have the typical.
Hold on, we just had a hiccup in the audio and video stream. My apologies. I know how important this is because that's when these crazy things happen where we get the freezes on an interview like this. And I'm just now getting into the basic backstory that I really want to know and understand about Dr. Shiva. So we'll see if we can get him hooked back in here momentarily. Again, sometimes it glitches. Let's see if I can disconnect and reconnect and see if it pops in there. All right, stand by. Dr. Shiva, you still there? Dr. Shiva, you still there? Oh my gosh. Dude, this is like, for me, I'm like the most excited about an interview, a first-time interview that I've been in a long time, getting some backstory like this, and then it kind of disconnected. I see a black screen where Dr. Shiva's face was. Let me just go in and see. Hopefully we can reconnect. But his backstory, he writes about it, a journey across East and West, science and tradition, ancient and modern. And, I realize there are some of my friends out there that have been in this arena for a long time trying to do battle. And like in California and in New York, they have failed to prevent the worst case scenario from happening, the elimination of religious liberty. And that's a problem. So you got a guy like this that comes on and says, hey, there's another way to go. Let's look at this way. I'm like, I'm going to go, all right, let's check it out. What's going on? Now, the things that happened in Jersey, they weren't successful with this similar protest, things like that in California and New York State, and much less Maine, although they're going to push back on that in Maine. So to get some of the backstory into why Dr. Shiva perceives and believes the way he does and why he behaves the way he does in terms of moving out into this movement, talking about truth, freedom, and health, again, I'm invested in figuring this thing out. And Super Don, I see that we're connected, but it's just a black screen and I can't see or hear him, just to know that there is a connection here. Yeah, you got any insight? Let me try to get him. Yeah, let me try and text him while you carry on for a moment while I do. This is live TV, if you will, happening without people behind the scenes trying to make this thing go.
Indeed. So we'll see if we can get him back on. Very, 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 very interesting guy. I mean, I heard about him just, not too terribly long ago, but it was kind of like, who's this Dr. Shiva guy?
Mm-hmm.
And he has just been out there on the front lines, and he's developed quite a following. And he's great to listen to because he's very straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
He dropped a BS word there that we normally, but I mean that's who he is, and I totally can appreciate and respect that because that is really kind of the way that I am as well, where it's just like just tell it like it is.
Yeah, and we're not FCC limited. Obviously, we don't normally cuss, but it's all right. We're adults here for the most part, and kids have heard it. So, but again, the importance of the topic is such that I can't overstate how important it is to gather a different background, bringing it in terms of strategy. He's also running for Senate in Massachusetts. In addition to his story, I think we have a link to, let's see, he's doing a lot of media interviews as well. I'm trying to think, where is it? Here it is. So I have this page also listed at Shiva the number 4 Senate.com. Running for the United States Senate in Massachusetts to be what he calls a 21st century senator, standing at the crossroads where we can either head into a golden age or into the darkness. I mean, these are bold pronouncements, but I know he's got a perspective on it. I think his words are measured and chosen for a reason. And again, that's what I want to get back to understand that. It's a little bit different in terms of anybody's political endeavor to have a background like he has. Do you know if he's running as a Democrat or Republican? I think in Massachusetts, I'd be hard-pressed to find out how you can win as a Republican.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Massachusetts, you think it would be leaning more Democrat than Republican. But, I don't know. That would be a good question to ask.
Although they did have a Republican win a governor there once. It was Mitt Romney. If that tells you anything about what a Republican is in Massachusetts.
Mitt Romney was Massachusetts?
Yeah. Well, his dad was
yeah, that's right.
Elsewhere.
So we've got one person over on Facebook Live in the chat that's saying he's running as a Republican. So good for him.
Good for him. All right. Well, look, I would love to see him become a senator based on the history I know so far and his willingness to tackle so-called sacred cows, which is an interesting thing when we know about Hinduism in India in terms of the sacredness of the cow. That's where I think the concept and the saying or phraseology comes from. So I don't know why, if he's trying to reconnect, he has not. No evidence that he's done so. Hope he doesn't give up on us. But this is, I mean, like I said, I would promise him this is going to be an interview like he's never done before as far as the things I want to bring out. That's not going to be because I'm not just patting myself on the back. I just have a different perspective.
You want to take maybe just a quick break here and maybe we could give him a call and then we'll see what's going on. In the event that there's some kind of a technical issue, we'll just reschedule. But we'll see if maybe we can get him back on.
Okay, that sounds good. Let me see if I can find something to play for y'all. If you're hungry, how about some Living Fuel? Say hi to Casey Krejci, and we'll be right back.
Living Fuel. Upgrade your meal today. Imagine if you had a single meal which contained more protein than a half-dozen organic egg whites, more fiber than 2 bowls of steel-cut organic oatmeal, more vitamin D than 10 fillets of Arctic fish, more vitamin B12 than 50 servings of raw organic cheese, more vitamin E than 1 pound of raw organic almonds, more calcium than 2 glasses of whole organic milk, more potassium than 2 organic bananas, more phytonutrients than 10 fresh organic green salads, more antioxidants than 10 bowls of fresh vine-ripe organic berries, more omega-3 than 2 cups of organic edamame, more resveratrol than 4 glasses of wine, more probiotics than 6 cups of yogurt, more enzymes than 3 whole organic papayas, more vitamin C than 7 oranges. That would cost $268.13 per meal and equal to 14,124 calories. Imagine all that nutrition in a single super meal you can afford. Now, you don't have to imagine anymore. Living Fuel, the super meal you can drink. Upgrade your meal today.
Today, we live in an omnipresent cloud of charged particles emitted by electronic devices, electromagnetic fields, WLAN, and radio waves. These particles penetrate our bodies and heat the water in our body tissues. Recent scientific studies have shown that this particle flux not only heats the cells in our bodies as if we were in a microwave oven, but damages them as well. At Key Technologies, we want to protect you from the negative effects of such particles, so we have developed the Key Home Cell and other products. The Key Home Cell creates a protective field that works like a filter, intercepting any dangerous particles before they can enter your body. Here we have a partial look at the inner workings of the Key Home Cell. The Key Home Cell generates a charge exchange between the water tubes, thereby discharging free electrons and releasing them into the room. Within 24 hours, the key home cell creates a torus field. The free electrons formed in the torus use their negative charge to bind to the positively charged harmful particles, thereby rendering them harmless to you. The torus field has an effective range of 16.4 feet above and below, and 24.6 feet around the device. The torus field created by the key home cell is transmitted and provides you with protection through the walls of your home. Not only humans and animals are shielded from harmful radiation, but plants and food too. Whether mobile radio waves or WLAN, any particles that come within the torus field can no longer cause any harm to you or your family. The key home cell provides you with all-around protection, allowing you to communicate with absolute peace of mind when using your cell phone or any other electronic devices. The key home cell's free electrons are transmitted into the water through the torus field and repairing the water structure that was destroyed by radiation particles. Water regains its ideal vibrating hexagonal grid structure. The difference is easy to taste and can be proven with laboratory testing. This type of perfect hexagonal water structure is found in fresh spring and healing water and has also been seen in snowflakes. The same effect happens with our food, which also contains water. The key home cell greatly reduces radiation exposure from cell phones, laptops, WLAN transmitters, mobile terminals, and other sources of radiation. The key home cell drastically reduces the thermal stress on your body tissue. It is very fast and very easy. With the key home cell, you will experience a new quality of well-being within your home and more life energy without any unhealthy exposure to radiation.
All right, thanks for bearing with us, y'all. We have Dr. Shiva back in. We just had to reconnect on a different browser. Let me just test to see if you can hear me, Dr. Shiva.
I can hear you. I'm just setting this up so everyone here can, 1 second here.
You got it. I've got you in the visual. I'll just go back to your website here about Shiva running for Senate in the state of Massachusetts as a Republican now, which would be great. He'd be better than Mitt Romney by far. I don't even think it's a close contest. And I'm going to talk about, again, from the background to what makes him, what's that prime motivation. And that's why I wanted to get into that history as we were talking about Dr. Shiva, about seeing the caste system and seeing what his family had been through, his ancestry, and coming to America and the land of opportunity, going very much into what we might term the egghead of research universities, MIT, and getting multiple degrees, including in systems biology. I may not be saying that exactly correct, but when you step back and you can see systems from the whole perspective, you begin to see how pieces fit together, which again is a unique perspective as we talk about either politics or even doctors, medical. They often lose sight of the biological forest from the trees because they get so specialized that they don't see how one thing connects to another, how the systems fit together. So, Dr. Shiva, if you're ready to go, I want to bring you back into the mix. Let's see. I see you. Everybody sees you. Say hi once again.
How's everyone doing?
Great.
So start back again. I don't know how much we missed.
Well, yeah, go ahead and start a little bit from your journey to America, seeing the difference in maybe opportunity, but how the difference between caste system and class or class warfare, is it the same thing? Are there minor nuances to it, or is it a major difference?
Well, I mean, there's subtleties, but the big, I think what I was sharing, and I'll just sort of rewind, is that, I grew up in two streams they say most of your formation as a child is done by the time you're 5 or 6 years old, right? And the two streams that affected me were the drive to understand how systems work, but in two ways: in the area of the caste system, politics, and medicine and health. And they were both intertwined in a fascinating way. On the one hand, I grew up in India, which has a caste system where there's a hierarchy where you have the priesthood, this goes back to ancient times, but it was originally the caste system was meant to be a system where people had different skills, right? The guy who was good at math or science or who could weld or who could do carpentry, right? It was a guild system. But somewhere along the way, that system became hierarchical and in some ways oppressive. And some people argue and some of the research shows the caste system was starting to go away between the 8th century to the 15th century. And the British actually came and they instantiated it after the Battle of Plassey in India because it was a great way to reorganize people. And they actually imposed a draconian form of the caste system that was pre-8th century. And there's a lot of evidence to show this. But so it was probably likely very beneficial to the British, but the bottom line was that caste system allowed, it was oppressive because in my case, as I was mentioning, when I was a kid, I remember 4-year-old kid going to a friend of mine's homes, and I was literally shunned out and told to stay out of the home. And because that's when I realized that there was a caste system, and I was given water in a different bowl. People talk about segregation, in that sense, it was sort of a racism mixed with class. And when I asked my mom about this, as I was mentioning, people didn't hear it. My mom said, "Oh yeah, we're considered Shudras." And when she used to go to the well in her village to get water, they would tell her that she was a pig, and they would shoo her away. Okay. So that was one, and that got me very interested in politics and why was there oppression. This wasn't something, interesting for me. It was something that affected me directly. So for me, you said I was running for U.S. Senate. I see this very aristocratic Democrat, Joe Kennedy. When I started running for Senate in this election, I saw him going to a homeless shelter and sitting there all somber, taking pictures with, poor folks and people of color. This is all a photo opportunity for him. And it's sort of disgusting because I don't need to go there. You look at my own family's album, I have enough dark faces, et cetera. People live in huts and people have nothing. So I find that quite poverty pimping what these guys do. And that's why when people ask, why do you expose people in this vaccine movement? Because it bugs me that where is their intention is to really free people, or are they trying to build their own brand equity and build their business enterprise from oppression? Okay. And there's people who do that. Even in the caste system, you have politicians running in, I'm going to help for the lower caste. They give people bags of rice and this, and nothing has changed in that system when you have the same poverty pimps coming. So I've understood these dynamics of not only the establishment, but the not so obvious establishment. People claim they want to help people and sit on movements.
So Dr. Shiva, you have a sensitivity born of your experience that many people may not understand, that's why I wanted to ask you these questions, because if we're looking at you through our own eyes and our own experiences, we have no earthly idea in America for the most part. When I went to Africa many years ago, West Africa, as a young homeopath, and I met with the physicians, the doctors there, and I talked to them. I said, you know what? You got health problems here. Your best bet would be I said it this way, throw out the medicine of the white man because we're killing you. We're killing ourselves. It doesn't mean we're not good at advances in emergency trauma interventions, but in terms of chronic care or causing chronic disease through vaccination, through drugging. And they're like, we've never had a white guy from America come back and say, throw out your medicine. And I said, go back to the medicine of your ancestors, the medicines of the bush, much like Ayurvedic medicine, even homeopathic medicine, which is relatively young on the scale of natural medicines on the planet. But it was a different viewpoint. And I try to take that worldview. I don't say I'm the best at it, but I try. That's why I want a little bit more of your experience for people to know, who is this guy? What is he talking about? And why is he saying it?
Look, you got to understand, I grew up in two worlds at this very formative age. In Bombay, which was a city within city, a country within countries with people of all different races, all different religions. You'd wake up in the morning, you'd see Muslims, you'd see Christians, you'd see Hindus, Zoroastrians, every religion you can think about. In a very vibrant city, which is Bombay, which is like a New York on steroids. And then I grew up in this very serene village, at least 1/3 of my life, which had no electricity, no running water, dirt roads, walking around barefoot, and in a world which was tribals. My grandparents were tribals, indigenous peoples. That's who they were. And so I brought up in this very fascinating world, and it's hard for me to even fathom me sometimes in terms of what I grew up in, because I think this was normal. My grandmother used to channel spirits. My great-grandfather would do the stuff you would see in National Geographic. Okay, he was a indentured servant who went to Burma. This is my great-grandfather, okay? 93 years old. He's working in the fields, ripped muscularly. So I grew up with these amazing people, which I thought everyone else had. I thought everyone had grandparents like that, but that was my formative period. And then I shared. So in retrospect, within me was imbued this desire to understand why there was oppression in these systems of politics. And the other part of me was growing up with seeing both Western medicine. Here was my grandmother who had no medical training with tattoos all over her arms, chewing tobacco. 30, 40 people would be lined up at her home. And then she would be diagnosing people, healing them with all different modalities, from what you'd call MARMA, which is the finger method of acupuncture, to the right medicine for the right person for the right time, making formulations, sending me out to the woods to go pick this flower to give to someone because they have a sinus issue. It was quite amazing. And then on the other hand, she would go into trances and start teaching me how to meditate, etc. So this was normal life to me. But that journey, when I came to the United States, here I settled in Paterson, New Jersey, which was the Vietnam War taking place. I left India on my 7th birthday. And you see Paterson, which is very segregated, but it was normal for me, right? You have sex, drugs, and rock and roll, bell bottoms, Motown music. And then my parents went from Paterson to Clifton to Parsippany to Livingston. And the reason I mentioned those towns is there were towns from very poor to all the way to one of the wealthiest towns at Livingston, New Jersey. Very much like being in Bombay, where you see all the different variations of color, race, creed, everything. So I experienced both that in India and the United States. But one thing was singularly driven me was, why was there oppression? How do you overcome that? And how do you really achieve holistic understanding of medicine? Because I saw my grandmother heal people. So this desire for health and this desire for freedom, and the intersection was truth. So now I wasn't able to process a lot of this until a friend of mine said, Shiva, it's hard for people to understand your journey. So when they see a guy like me being able to articulate science on the one hand, has gotten 4 degrees from MIT, but at the same time can be out on the streets passing out leaflets, right? Which is what the hierarchy does not want you to do. Oh, you're supposed to be a Hollywood celebrity, right? And you get to be a spokesman for cancer or vaccines, right? Or come in top down. That never felt right to me, So I'll go get my hands dirty. But then at the same time, I've run 7 companies, been the CEO of multiple companies, met with the biggest CEOs in the world, and have built, $100 million companies. So it's sort of wild, man. I can go, it's hard for people to understand me, how I can write books, go do medical research, but that is who I am. You have someone like me who grew up in working class towns, can speak straight. And if you want me to be diplomatic, I can be that too. But that journey, from the desire to understand freedom and the desire to understand what is real health, that's why when the vaccine movement took place, it's not the vaccine movement. This is, for me, it's been going on for a long time. But when I looked at this, I said, Jesus, this is the integration of truth, freedom, and health. And at the same time, I saw people sitting on this movement for 17 years who frankly weren't really going at it hard enough. And that's why I've been critical of them. And then you have people saying, oh, Shiva, you're trying to disunite people. I'm sorry. If you want to have your little sorority and you want to get crumbs from the establishment, keep doing that. But I'm here to win and fight because I know what this means. Because you're talking about vaccinating the shit out of everyone in India, everyone in Africa, everyone in the United States, and owning people's bloodstreams. This is not a game to be screwed around with. You have to go and win this, because the vaccine movement is not about vax or anti-vax. It's about something far more deeper. It's about who owns you. Mm-hmm. And, I think Henry Kissinger said, if you want to control people, if you want to control a country, control oil. But if you want to control people, control their soil. And companies like Monsanto, it's neo-missionary stuff. In the old days, they sent these priests and they would try to convert people, calling these people heathen, right? Now the model is you give them GMOs. It's neo-missionary work. You send in the Gates Foundation, okay? And by the way, Bill Gates didn't invent DOS, okay? He had, no one questions whether he created, the DOS operating system. But when the facts are so clear that I invented email, you have the same white liberals who claim they want diversity and inclusivity, even creating a controversy on the invention of email when it's so black and white that a 14-year-old immigrant kid in Newark, New Jersey did invent email. So, so what I'm saying is I see all these contradictions, and it typically comes from the multiracial, quote unquote, liberal aristocracy who does this. It's not the white working class who they call racist and white supremacists, et cetera. Those people actually get me because they're my people.
And considering that you have been interacting in the elite, if you will, of academia, MIT, Harvard, in that area, I don't know how you must be diplomatic on some level, because I would not have I consider myself sometimes diplomatic too, but I don't like to hang out with people that are in that elite view that look to control others. They look down on others in that way. And I think you must have seen or must see this every day.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got to understand, when I came to MIT, I didn't even know about MIT until 2 weeks before I applied. My high school, which was a predominantly Jewish high school, a lot of great teachers, a lot of great people, but me and my sister were the two new kids on the block. No one really advised us, okay? My mother had helped these two women who had gotten kicked out of their home.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 weeks before I applied, one of the women's friends said, Shiva, you should apply to MIT. So I wasn't even going to apply to the place. So when I came to MIT, I saw all these people looked quite unhealthy. I didn't want to go to the place. I was an athlete. I played soccer. I was a star pitcher. You know, I wasn't just some nerd, you know, even though I could nerd out pretty well and was the number one student in that high school. So again, it was an interesting thing because I had a distaste for this notion of elitism or a distaste of segregation, meaning I would see kids at MIT who came in normal looking, within 1 year starting to have little tics, act weird, change their voice, as though you needed to be that, you needed to sound like a freaking nerd to be intelligent. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no. So if you like offend an elitist, I mean, is it too street of me to say they should put their big boy pants on and deal with it and move on and start?
Well, the reality is that you got to understand from my standpoint, the fact that we came to America, that the fact it's like, if to me, it's like the amount of gifts that I've been given by this country and my parents coming here, that I don't give a damn about those people. My goal is to help working people, be it in New Jersey or, you know, in India. Mm-hmm. That what can I do with the amazing skills and weapons and the insights that education has afforded me? And if I don't do that, I'm a parasite. So to me, when I look at these people, you know, I was also in Hollywood for 3 years, okay? And I saw this celebrities are different than artists. It's a big difference, okay? The celebrity is someone who wants to be a star and they know they don't have that much skill, okay? So they spend all their time trying to get fame. There are few actors, great actors, rare in Hollywood, right? Who are so good, like you look at like a Daniel Day-Lewis, okay? Phenomenal guy, okay? He does 1 or 2 movies, maybe every 4, 5, 6 years. But the celebrity culture is about being relevant, okay? And you have bottom feeders in that too, okay? Many of them who enter vaccine movements, you know, cancer movements, et cetera, right? Because it's their way to become relevant. They don't have another job. So for me, when I look at this, the issue is, do we really want to move society forward on the interest of the broad mass of working people who suffer, who toil and want a better home? Or are people trying to exploit these movements to make something for themselves? And so I'm into, you know, the aspect of really pushing the envelope because, you know, I'm an inventor and an entrepreneur and an innovator. And so the issue is when you look at these movements, it's like, what is the opening that you can move it forward in a significant way?
Mm. Well, listen, I'm just fascinated by the journey. I could just sit and listen and talk. I hope you don't mind hanging out here. And I apologize to everybody that is seeing that the video is out of sync with Dr. Shiva's audio. But we didn't have a chance to really test it because Dr. Shiva was on a conference call prior to the show today. And I think the audio is very, very good quality. And what we're hearing, what we're learning is quite extraordinary. So bear with us on that. If you need to close your eyes while I'm doing this and not watch if it throws you with audio and video being out of sync in this way. But Dr. Shiva, let me transition again, coming from the unique background from India, seeing all that you saw, including healing being completely defying some sense of Western mindset reductionism. You're in an area where, you know, the Western mind reduces everything and loses sight of systems. And because of that, they're willing to risk toxicity, even death, via injection under the guise of some collective claim that if we get enough people injected similarly, that we could prevent an outbreak of a given disease that they claim is prevented by these injections containing antigens, containing adjuvants, containing animal RNA and DNA from different species, containing aborted fetal cell lines, and other things not acknowledged to be present, including contaminants that certain non-conflicted scientists have discovered, including glyphosate or maybe other heavy metal nanoparticle contaminant particulate. So, the question is, with that reductionist mindset and collectivist mindset, you've mentioned individualization of treatment like your mother did. And how have you been able to make peace with those people that don't see it that way?
Well, look, I don't have a particular prejudice towards Eastern or Western medicine, nor do I hold any one of these in high esteem, one or the other way. Both have some incredible benefits, and both have also their dark side. And again, because of my journey, I see both. Mm-hmm. So in the traditional systems of Indian medicine, the yoga system and the medical system were united in the system called Siddha. So they had martial arts, they had yoga postures, they had the use of microdoses of heavy metals, they had the meditative pieces, and then they had the aspect of marma therapy, right, which you would call today all these were united in one system. So at some point in the Indian system, and there's a whole history to this, they too were disintegrated. The yoga, in fact, got disintegrated. So if you look at yoga, there are 7 chakras in the yoga system. And in fact, that system got disintegrated. Some people did hatha yoga, which was, certain postures. Some people did bhakti yoga. Some people did, surashabda yoga. So somewhere all of these yogic systems got disintegrated. And many of these gurus try to own pieces of the yoga system and built their own business models around it. Okay. And so in India, you have the actual truth of the integrated yoga system. And then you have these yogis or gurus trying to build businesses. And you have people becoming very narcissistic in that world too. Okay. You have that whole dark side there. In the Western world, now the difference was in those systems of medicine and yoga, it was based on observation and prevention. So that's a good part of it, right? In the Western system of medicine primarily came out of war. If you go back to Florence Nightingale, it was about putting a soldier back on the field. And as a part of that, it did some great things. Crisis, antibiotics, certain steroids, and certain things when you really got screwed up, surgery, et cetera. I mean, this is in extreme cases. You may need these tools, okay? It doesn't help you in the prevention mode. But the other part of it was we created things called big pharma, big hospitals, right? Insurance companies, right? Those are the dark sides of Western medicine. But if you look at the full sort of buffet, today it's a pretty cool time to live. You can go get acupuncture, you can go get surgery, you can go get supplements. You have access to a whole array. And the issue is that what's right for you may not be the same for me. So that comes from the freedom of choice for you to choose what's appropriate for you. Okay, some people want to eat crap. Well, they're never going to want to change their diet, okay? They're going to let them go. If they want to go do drugs, let them go do drugs and get their stents put in. I have friends of mine who are cardiologists. They'll tell people, look, you can change your diet like this, and I don't need to do this stent. Or do you want the stent? Some people say, I just want the stent. I'm not going to change my diet.
Yeah,
okay?
I've seen that many times over the years too, so I can concur in that.
Right, but the point is you were given choice, and you have a notion of what the risk is. When it comes to the immune system has evolved over billions of years from invertebrates to us. It's a very complex system. The notion of vaccines was to give your body a artificial access to pathogens so you could turn on your immune system. This is the theory of it, right? And that theory was based on a model of the immune system that goes back to 1915 or 1954, period. It's based on the innate system communicating to the adaptive immune system. In many ways, it's a unidimensional model of the innate immune system, which is everything, that comes through our eyes, throat, ears, if someone sneezes on me, it's everything coming in through the visceral part of our body, turns on through macrophages.
Oh, don't tell me we're going to freeze up again. Hold on. We got Dr. Shiva on pause there inadvertently. Like I said, this technology or a software is very intensive. It requires a CPU to work hard, and that's what we're learning over the almost, well, now years since we've been utilizing it. And I think we've overtaxed Dr. Shiva's system. I might have to send him a message again to kind of continue. I don't know if y'all are as fascinated as I am. Again, I love backstories. I love journeys. I want to know why people do what they do, why they believe and perceive the way they do. And I think we don't spend enough time doing that. Instead, we react according to our own experience, and we assume or we make judgment based on not all of the information, or maybe even a speck of that information. And I find a dude, he's fascinating, and I want to talk to him more about this. Maybe he can. Let's see if we can get him to reconnect here again with that, and we can resync it. But it looks like his computer froze up again. Let's see, where are we at in timing? Yeah, we've still got some time to go here. And let me speak to this. Hopefully, you can let me see if I can just message this to say reconnect. Here, hold on. Let me get him on the text. Say try to reconnect again. Stand by. This is all happening live in real time. And there are people out there who are a little butthurt about the things that he said regarding the way things have been done for a long time here. And, many of these people are my friends, that we're on parallel paths. Everybody, and I've said this for many years, everybody's got to follow their bliss, their unique path in remedying this situation. Some people have a different path, and other people would disagree with that path. I'm a guy who says, you know what, follow your bliss. I may not follow you there, but I'm going to support you in the effort, because in some way it's going to awaken somebody just to a reality they didn't know, they weren't aware of. And you've got a unique history that is not typical, although of immigrants perhaps, but even of immigrants, of what Dr. Shiva is doing. So I'm not going to dismiss him out of hand because he says something to somebody that somebody gets offended by. I'm in talk radio, and I have been for now, this is my 21st year. You got to get over being offended by stuff. There's a certain point I say, put up your big boy pants or big girl pants and kind of deal with it. Look in the mirror and go, is this me? Is this not me? And then move on. If you disagree, move on and continue doing what your bliss or your spirit will direct you to do. And so, I don't typically get caught up in the politics, even though we talk politics. This guy said this about this guy. And then I recognize the shortcomings of the so-called pro-choice movement in the vaccine, awareness issue or campaign. California lost. We talked about this extensively with my good buddy Tim Boland, why some of those folks that are now crying about what Dr. Shiva is saying, they failed in preventing the disaster that was California. Okay, somebody may argue, well, there was no way to succeed. Maybe, maybe not. But trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is of course, as you know, insane. And does this mean I agree with everything Dr. Shiva says? No, I agree with everything anybody says. If I did, then it would be no use for one of us. We all have different perspectives that we bring to the table. But if you're leading with your ego, you can get butthurt easy. And, the question is, as Dr. Shiva is presenting his perspective, which is quite fascinating, and we've got him back on. I've just got to plot him into the shots in real time here. Stand by, Dr. Shiva, if you can hear me, and I appreciate you. Okay, I appreciate your tenacity and not giving up on me here in this show, because I think what we're communicating here is as fascinating as anything we ever do. And I want to get you back into the mix here. As I've just been commenting, Dr. Shiva, about, there are many of the people that I'm friends with in this so-called movement have different perspectives on the way to go about it. And I bring up the issue of California, the failure of what happened in California and New York, and say, you know what, we gotta look at ourselves and say, hey man, could we have done it differently? Not to kind of look back and rehash things that we can't change, but to say, hey, we've got other states like New Jersey, like others that are going to face similar challenges. Shouldn't we look and say, maybe there are different methods, different ways to go, different things we can do, and not worry about, hey, yeah, we screwed up, but learn from what we did that didn't work?
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to get your thing back on here. I think I'm on. Can you see me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through fine. It's a little bit of a less delay. And again, I apologize the way we got it going today with you being on calls. I know how busy you are. So even if you're a little bit out of sync, I think as people can hear the words coming out of your mouth, they'll hear a perspective they haven't heard before.
So I think the key thing here to understand is this. look, movements themselves have a physics to them, okay? People think politics does not have a science to it, and it does. And those in power know the science of politics. In fact, there are people who actually act as though they want to help people, actually know the science of politics to keep down revolutionary movements. And this may seem implausible to a lot of people who are frankly very naive, okay? Mm-hmm. And what I mean by this is, so consider this, okay? You have a politician who wants to get elected, okay? And let's say he's a Catholic, okay? And he lives in a neighborhood where there's Catholics and there's Jews, okay? He may go among the Jews who are absolutely living fine with the Catholics and tell them, you know what? Or to the Catholics, that the Jews hate you, right? Whatever, stir up some trouble, right? And act as though he's a friend of the Catholics, all right? They basically use ways to figure out trigger points to divide people. They do not want people to come together to actually solve some fundamental common issue, all right? This is called basically a divide and rule politics that is played in a very, very effective way. So you take any issue, you don't want to bring people together because they may actually point their guns at you, okay? You want to divert it to something else. So you take any issue. So for example, you take gun violence, okay? There could be, and I'll talk about this, there could be multiple issues that actually cause gun violence, okay? Instead of figuring out what those issues are, you just take one of those issues, oh, it's access to guns, and then you create this dialectic between pro-2A and anti-2A, okay? Mm-hmm. For example, you take something like vaccines, okay? You don't address the fact that your own friends who've been involved in are politicians and friends or Democrats or Republicans may have never addressed the public infrastructure issue, that the infrastructure is decaying, right? And so instead of addressing that issue, they divert the issue to say, oh, we're going to solve public health by mandating vaccines, okay? And the people that are doing that may be your friends, okay? Who may be legislators. So instead of exposing the fact that they're actually scumbags and part of the corrupt political system, you try to say, well, no, we need to be nice to them, okay? Because they are fundamentally part of the major problem, right? And if you look at this issue with vaccines, what you'll find fascinating is the same pro-choice people who claim that they stand for choice are the same people who are against this. And they're typically liberal white Democrats, okay? It's fascinating. And many of the people who try to lead this movement were supporting liberal white Democrats like Hillary Clinton. Okay? Look, I know many of these people. So Bobby Kennedy's done a lot of nice things, okay? He spread information, but why did he endorse Hillary Clinton? 2007 and 8 and 2016. Not like he voted for her, but he actually endorsed her. Now, I have to do the dirty job, as I've said, because I may be the untouchable who calls this out, okay? But you have to ask that. Why doesn't someone call this out? Is it because he has a Kennedy next to his name and he's done some nice stuff? This is a fundamental flaw. How can you say that you're for freedom and you have a woman who's in many ways I consider the vaccine queen?
Yes. And very elitist and authoritarian in her
yes, and the Clinton Global Initiative has made money off vaccines. Mm-hmm. Okay? So why is Bobby out there endorsing her? And in the 2016 election, Trump was actually bringing out, the issues about vaccines. Why didn't he endorse him? So you've drawn this dialectic. Oh, I'm a Democrat. I'm the Kennedys. We only endorse Democrats. And we're going to endorse this total scumbag Hillary Clinton. And then you say you're against vaccines. See, and then people say, oh, well, Bobby had to do that because ... And this is a flaw in these movements. People are forgiving people for fundamental theoretical errors. Okay.
We're talking about abandoning principle or never having principle in that case.
Exactly. So how can are you doing this because it's your shtick that the Kennedys are the ones who do civil rights? They own that bounds. And a Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai who comes from India can't be talking about that. You see what I'm saying?
Well, Dr. Shiva, you go out there and you're pissing people off when you do this. And I acknowledge that. Look,
no, I'm not pissing people off. What's happening is you're pissing off people who do not want to actually use their brains to understand how you advance movements. Mm-hmm. Many of the mothers are saying, Shiva, this never made sense to me. Thank you so much. Okay. And this is not about disuniting. This is about expanding the base, really figuring out what the enemy is. Okay.
Well, and here, let me ask the question in terms of Kennedy, because what he's done in the narrow sense on this issue of vaccination, he's certainly talked truth to power, although he still claims to be pro-vaccine. I don't understand, when you realize what vaccines are, how you could be promoting that, considering what we know of the immune system and the search for the holy grail of the antibody not even being sufficient to defend you against a disease in and of itself. So there are flaws in that, and I don't know if he's placating certain aspects.
The flaws in this are, you had John Kennedy, okay? John Kennedy was a visionary. The Kennedys after that have been living and exploiting the past, okay? And it's an interesting phenomenon, okay? I'd be running against Joe Kennedy here. Here's a guy who went to Harvard Law School, never wanted to be a lawyer, but it was his inheritance to now run for politics, right? Mm-hmm. And then he gets to run for Senate, and he's running against a guy called Ed Markey, okay, on the Democrat side, and they're saying he's polling against him. So people need to understand this concept of celebrity culture is part of the corruption that's taken place in this culture, okay? You get hit with celebrities, you get hit with the Kennedy name, therefore you should bow down to it and you shouldn't question it. This is total mind screwing of people. I was going to use a different word, okay?
Thank you for toning it down. We do have kids that watch the show. So.
But what I'm trying to say is, this is part of the exploitation that takes place to people. Mm-hmm. And so when that occurs, you do not question anything. And that is as bad as not questioning the establishment. That's what I'm saying. You censor what you're saying. Oh, we can't say that against him, right? We shouldn't question that. Well, the reality is, why are you supporting Hillary Clinton? Why? The Clinton Global Initiative has made hundreds of millions of dollars from research initiatives for vaccine science, quote unquote, okay? So this is a flaw, because what that leads to, that theoretical framework, leads to the quote unquote bounds of what you talk about and what you don't, right? How you actually build a movement, that it's bounded. You've already enclosed yourself. Certain things, the Democrats are better than Republicans, right? That's a thesis that's there. Well, why did you support Hillary Clinton? Well, the Democrats are better than Republicans. Well, the Democrats are better than Republicans. Therefore, I supported her. But forget the fact that Merck gave money and worked with Clinton Global Initiative to spread HPV vaccine, right?
Well, you're bringing up the things that are very uncomfortable for people that have bought into the programming.
People need to get uncomfortable because there's a lot of working people out there who don't have the comfort to get on a plane and fly in private planes and talk about how they're going to save the freaking world when it's not real to them.
Hey, okay? Dr. Shiva, how much time do you have? Because I know I thought we had scheduled you for the hour, and I know how busy you are. I'm willing to continue this conversation if you've got time.
I have about 45 more minutes. I got to get on another call, but I have about 45 more minutes.
Okay. Yeah. I won't take all 45, but I got to take a break because we have the UK Health Radio that we've got to sign off for their purposes, but we continue on many other formats. So we're going to take a couple of minutes of pause here. If you have questions or comments you want to submit, we'll review them and read them. And maybe if we can't get to them today, if Dr. Shiva would ever come back, be awesome. I'm digging the conversation. Yes, it's not all comfortable and easy, but that's life. And what's more uncomfortable is becoming a slave to a pharmaceutical government media complex. That's way more uncomfortable. And for those of you moms and dads out there who have vaccine injured or killed children, you know what I'm talking about. So we'll be right back with more of Dr. Shiva here on the Robert Scott Bell Show, the place for health, freedom, and healing liberty, where I remind you that the power to heal is yours.
The Robert Scott Bell Show. The Robert Scott Bell Show.
Scott Bell Show.
Check out a sweet offer that my friends at Better Way Health give. This is an immune boosting supplement that you can't get anywhere else.
Beta-glucan activates and enhances your immune response to invaders.
These things are brilliant for modulating the immune system.
Someone has a need for help in supporting their immune system, I'm looking at the glucan product.
It's amazing, and there's been an enormous amount of research done on this.
It's the most studied immunomodulator on Earth, with over 14,000 published studies referencing beta-glucan, and it's currently being tested in roughly 100 clinical trials.
If you like your dietary supplements with validated science, there's nothing that has more behind it than the beta-1 3D glucan from Better Way Health.
Probably the most heavily researched substances that I'm aware of that modulates the immune system.
It rebuilds your immune system.
Consistency and quality are everything.
Here, you want to see my supplement drawer? Here it is. Get ready.
I was putting together my research and I tripped on this supplement called beta-glucan.
There it is. It's very small. I take beta-glucans, immune booster.
You don't have to worry that you're overstimulating the immune system. We have been just amazed.
I take like 2 a day from Better Way Health.
It's been tested against about 36 other immune boosting products and found to be superior.
If you have an immune system or you want one, beta-1 3D glucan, that transfer point is very unique. It's going to get the results that you're looking for. I support it and I use it.
Better Way Health, I got to tell you, you can spend more time, you can spend more money, but you cannot give better service than you're going to get from those guys down there. They are truly 24 karat.
The brand you want to get is called Transfer Point Beta-1 3D Glucan, and you can get it from BetterWayHealth.com. Let's spread the message about beta-glucans. It's a powerful substance from nature that can help you.
All right, y'all, welcome back to the Robert Scott Bell Show. We are in bonus territory here. Dr. Shiva has some extra time, which is great. Again, apologize in retrospect for the first parts of the interview. You heard everything he had to say, but the video was out of sync. But we appear to be back in sync there now as we go into territory. And I'm watching, and Super Don's messaging me that the chat room is I don't know if it's aggressively divided, but there's a lot of discourse that's intense. And y'all, this is a good thing. I think, it's one thing when we all are agreeing with each other. It's great. We feel good. And it's an environment where I hope that you feel safe, that you can disagree with one another, and that you would engage the things that Dr. Shiva's bringing from his experience. And that's why I started the interview wanting his backstory. And I know in a short interview, we can't get a full backstory, but a perspective on life that's born of experience that is different than yours, different than mine. And his education. I don't bow down to celebrity. I don't bow down to somebody who has PhDs, but I'm going to watch and observe them and how they interact with the world. And I'm very intrigued by what Dr. Shiva is bringing, a different perspective that can be of benefit to us all. Now, we don't have to all agree, but can we find a way to work together on a common goal, common purpose? He brought up the thing I talk about that Super Don, my producer, loves when I mentioned the Hegelian dialectic. Those that would divide us to conquer us. Find a little nitpicky thing that we can be, I'm so butthurt about that. I'm never going to talk to him. I'm never going to listen or her. That stuff happens. I'm like, you guys and gals out there, other than the kids in the audience, are adults. We got to get past some of these things and not lead with our ego and emotion. Come back and let's engage in ideas, in intellect. And Dr. Shiva, welcome back.
One of the things here is, let's just take a step back. People in movements, whenever a revolutionary force comes in and starts pointing out what I've been pointing out, always bring up the word unity, okay? The word unity. Oh my God, this guy's dividing us, okay?
Yes.
So let's talk about that, okay? And that comes from, unfortunately, an ignorance in understanding what has been successful in building anything that human beings have ever gotten from times that we were slaves or serfs or anything, okay? Anything. It has not been that the master gave you stuff, okay? Mm-hmm. So let's go down to these people's concept of unity. And so I just tweeted out fake unity versus real unity, okay?
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting concept. Fake unity, real unity.
So you be in your little 20-person little fraternity that you've been in for 50 years, doing something some way, and a guy comes in and says, wait a minute, the emperor has no clothes. And you say, whoa, 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 you're splitting us up, right? Well, that's what's going on here, okay? So within a movement, it is very, very important to discuss the nature of political movements. And unfortunately, this is not taught in high schools. This is not taught in junior high school, elementary school, but I've spent my whole life studying this, the same amount of effort I spent getting the 4 degrees from MIT, because I've been fascinated by how do you actually overcome oppression. And there is a physics to this. So people can spend their 30 years of their life following somebody, okay, and running around with their chickens with their heads cut off and say, oh shit, we lost in California, we lost here, I'm going to go run away, okay? And that's what the establishment wants. They want people to get depressed. They want people to say, shit, you can't really fight them, they're too powerful, okay? Well, I would argue with you that the people who've been leading many, and by the way, this is not only this movement, civil rights movement, you go down the list, anti-war movement, the movement for Indian independence, the movement for Russian people to rise up. If you go study these movements in detail, and if people want to talk to me, I have studied them. And some of the people in this movement have also studied them. And they actually want to subvert them too. Some people go to the, Tufts Fletcher School of Law. They go to, Woodrow Wilson School of Law. They actually study how to F up movements, okay? Mm-hmm. So let me tell you the broad dynamics of physics, no different than force equals mass times acceleration. There are forces in history. So here are those 3 primary forces. One force is those people who want to keep things as they are, okay? I call them the establishment, okay? Those people in power. Then there are the slaves, the wage slaves, the serfs, the peasantry who want to rise up and they want a better day in the sun, okay? They're typically seeking freedom, they're typically seeking truth, and they're typically seeking health. That's why I call it our movement for truth, freedom, and health, okay? Well, those people, when they rise up, do we lose you, Robbie?
No, we're good. We're good.
Those people, when they rise up, are typically trying to figure things out. How do you take down the establishment, which is constraining their truth, freedom, and health? All right? Now, in all of these movements, if you study history, it's typically been bottoms up. People just, after massive amounts of time being oppressed, it's not like they're evil people, eventually take up arms or they do revolts, okay? It's bottoms up. They don't really want to fight. They wish that the master would be nice to them, okay? So they eventually rise up. Now, what does a master do? The clever master, what they've done in history is they create a middle force to quiet these people down. Okay? And I call that the NSOEs. Okay, it's my term, not so obvious establishment. Okay? And that force, and this has been historical, so all of you guys listening out there, understand this, that force of the not so obvious establishment is a force of the establishment. Now, I'm not saying this is done sometimes explicitly, but sometimes it's done implicitly, okay? Because these people all hang out together. They all party at the same restaurant in Malibu, in Nobu. They screw each other's friends, and they're part of the same family. What I'm trying to say is they're part of the same ethos. So sometimes it's deliberate, sometimes it's sort of implicit, okay? And this is a very subtle thing for people may not understand. You go to New York, the elites in New York, the Republicans and Democrats all hung out together. They actually hated Donald Trump because they considered him sort of white trash, okay? They didn't like him. So they really don't care for him. And Donald Trump appealed to the broad mass of American working people. And that may be hard for some people to understand, but that was an example of someone who wasn't part of the establishment in some sense, okay? And forget Trump as a person, but I'm giving you an idea here. But the not so obvious establishment is a force, okay? It has existed in political movements. In the Russian Revolution, people can go study this. You had the Tsar, the establishment. You had the Navy, the Russian workers were starting to rise up on their own long before Lenin came on the picture, okay? And the Bolsheviks. And what the Tsar did, in opposition to them, he created something called the Duma, D-U-M-A, which was a Russian legislature. He said, shit, let's get these people off the street. That's too dangerous. It cannot be controlled. Let's bring them into our nice confining little square called the legislature, okay? Because if we get them into the legislature, we can then control them, okay? And same thing occurred, as I've shared, in India, okay? at a certain point, the Indian masses said, screw this. We want to overthrow the British. We want to have a good bloody revolution like the American Revolution did. We want to kick them out. We've suffered 300 years of exploitation. What did the British do? They created the Indian National Congress, which is a legislature. So all the people could come in there and argue against each other. They flew in Mahatma Gandhi. I'm putting this, as a metaphor, but he came in, he did nothing for the people in South Africa. They branded him as a saint, okay? Mm-hmm. And his job was a not so obvious establishment. And what he did was he tried to lessen the conflicts, you see? It's like trying to ameliorate irreconcilable differences. That's what the not so obvious establishment does. There's freaking irreconcilable differences. These guys come in and sort of try to smooth it over so you never get to the heart of the...
This is a difficult thing for people to conceive of because no one wants to believe that they've been manipulated into that middle area. It offends their sensibility. I would never fall prey to that. I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that we're all vulnerable potentially to be duped.
Remember, those in power have power. They want to retain it. Mm-hmm. And it's very naive to think they're always going to just take out a hammer and slam you. They're going to use other more powerful ways. So they have the not so obvious establishment as a force. Okay. It's one of their tools. So in India, for example, Gandhi comes in and what do you have? The Indian document is called the transfer of power. It's not called the Indian Declaration of Independence. So they transfer power from the British, the royalty, to the Indian elites for 60 years, 70 years. And they called it independence. Okay. Well, for 70 years, India had massive amounts of corruption. Gandhi was the vehicle to help do that. They gave him a nice statue. They rebranded him, blah, 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 blah. Okay? This may be hard for you to understand, but that's what actually took place. You take the American, it's Martin Luther King Day yesterday, right? Martin Luther King, you had the civil rights movement, which was not originally, Martin Luther King came from elsewhere. You had black people rising up everywhere, okay? Martin Luther King was a bourgeois black preacher in the South. Very prestigious position, okay? Relatively. Very different than Malcolm X, who was on the streets, who was went through his own journey, probably similar to mine in some weird ways, okay? Not from a bourgeois background. And Malcolm was diminished. And the Kennedys and the Southern National Christian Conference promoted Martin Luther King. The March on Washington, as Malcolm said, was a circus. It was very well organized, okay? Beautiful speech, don't get me wrong, okay? But what did black people get out of that? They never had the fundamental issues addressed in this country, which was infrastructure in the inner cities. Instead, they threw a dog bone called affirmative action, which actually pitted poor blacks against poor whites. And we never solved the fundamental issues of race in this country. So he was an acceptable leader, part of the not so obvious establishment. And so you never had to put out the money to address the fundamental issues. Okay.
Dr. Shiva, again, I'm listening to you. I'm like, I'm a sensitive kind of guy because I broadcast to so many over so many years, and I hear people and I feel people going, oh my gosh, he's starting to take on MLK now. It's like, is there anything that you will not, and I look back at the origins of my country that I was born into, the United States, and see the revolution here, a secession, if you will, a Declaration of Independence from the crown, from royalty, saying, you know what, the people should be the sovereign, and we should limit the scope and size of government because the biggest threat to freedom would be an elite political class that would take advantage of this idea throughout history where government has basically said, we're above you, we will control, you will serve us. And they flipped it on its head. Now, I'm not saying it lasted and it's operating the same way our founders had hoped, but they also said we have to be vigilant, diligent. And it was only a small percentage of people that really wanted to take on the crown. There were a lot of people in the middle that said, I'll watch and see which way it goes. And there were some that were opposed because they had lofty positions and connections to the crown at that point. And so
so if you look at the point I'm trying to make here, it's a very objective point of there are forces, okay? They're the forces of the establishment. They're the forces of people who figure things out imperfectly, but it's a self-organizing system, okay? Coming up bottoms up. And then the establishment creates the not so obvious establishment to try to tell people how they should talk, how they should be, what is acceptable, what is unity, what is disunity. I mean, at the New Jersey March, before I got involved in this movement, we got thousands of emails on December 16th for me to come down. I was hammering away. We need to let it come bottoms up, because I noticed here in Massachusetts, you had an organization which has been around for 17 years, which was telling mothers what signs to carry, how they should talk, what to do. These are against these top-down people who are getting paid, okay? They're typically associated with some party typically, and trying to tell people how they should organize themselves. It's the not so obvious establishment. Some of these people may not even know that they're doing it, Robbie, okay? Some of them may be manipulated. But my point is that any major movement that has always worked and succeeded, and I'll give you some examples so people don't think you can't win. And I'll give you an example, okay? The American workers movement in this country, and people should go study this. How many of your viewers there know where May Day came? Ask them where did May Day come from? International Workers' Day. Where did it start? Sounds like a communist holiday, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know where it started? It started in America. In the late 1800s, in the Haymarket riots, American workers were fighting for basic human dignity, okay? The 8-hour work wage, etc. In the Haymarket riots in Chicago, 3 of them were shot. And in commemoration of them, it was called May Day all over the world. Okay? Reagan came in 1986 or 1984, and he changed it to Law Day. Okay? So if you look at the history of the American working class, working people, starting in the late 1800s to up until the early 1900s, you had massive, militant, powerful workers' movements, which people want to wipe out of American history. So by the time it comes to the 1920s and 30s, all those gains that Franklin Delano Roosevelt gave, they were because there was going to be a revolution in this country. He gave the 8-hour workday, Medicare, removal of child, all those gains were not from freaking Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He wasn't a nice guy. He was an elitist scumbag. Okay, I'm sorry. People actually study him.
No, I agree with you there. I don't think you have to apologize for that one.
The real powerhouses were workers' names that Americans don't even know. The real heroes that we got all those gains were from working people rising up by their own. Now, what happened in America, and that's how people got any of the gains we have today. And if you look at that curve starting in the 1900s to 1950, if you look at hygiene, transport, refrigeration, clean water, all of those came, elimination of child labor, from those workers' movements, a lot of women's movements, Bread and Roses in Lowell, Massachusetts, etc. And those movements is why you saw this massive decline in mortality from infectious diseases. Mm-hmm. Okay, but
let me add into this idea of public health, because I've called it a legal fiction, public health, a collectivist idea. Not that having clean water and sanitation and sewage and infrastructure is wrong. It's that it benefits individuals, because you don't get sick as a group, you don't get well as a group. And again, moving from collectivism to recognizing that we've been duped on illness too. That's how this has played out for so many years.
Well, the immune system is a complex system. If it's constantly under stress, it doesn't have a chance to. So it's like, if you lift weights every day of the week and you do heavy weights, you're going to tear down your muscle. Mm-hmm. So the public health phenomenon of all these gains actually reduce the amount of stress, right? So you can become more resilient. Okay.
Yes. So I don't dispute that. It's used as a battering ram for vaccination, and that's where the improper understanding.
But what's interesting is by the 1950s, when McCarthyism started, it was designed to brand the American workers' movements as Soviet-controlled communist movements, okay? Because the bourgeois, the elites in this country, were so afraid, okay, of working people rising up on their own without, some celebrity telling them what to do, okay? Without some guy who's trying to make money off building some media company, okay? Those movements were done bottoms up by people's names who we don't even know. And the establishment, after they were forced to give them gains in the 1930s, went after them. They did the Red Scare. So with the McCarthy era movement, peaking in the 1950s, was to go after working people's movements, Robbie. Mm-hmm. And isn't it interesting? That's when vaccines come too.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. I'm getting texts from my wife and my producer. They're enjoying you calling me Robbie. They've never heard anybody call me Robbie. It's okay. I'm just enjoying it too. Like I said.
Right. So my point is this, right?
Yes.
People in the vaccine movement say, "Oh yeah, look, we got that public health. All those changes came, and then vaccines came." Mm-hmm. By the time the measles vaccine came, 98% had already gone away. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
97%. Yeah. Okay. My point is, but they don't tell you where those gains came from. It was people fighting on the freaking streets. for our rights. Okay? So starting in 1950 is when vaccines start coming. And I find it sort of fascinating when I did this connection. 1950s is when they go after workers' movements with McCarthy era. 1950s is when they start vaccination. Okay? So today, we're in 2019. Okay?
2020.
A guy like
Here
me,
we go.
huh?
A year ago already?
We're in 2020. Okay?
Yes.
You know, I've been fighting many movements. You know, you can see me burning the picture of the South African flag on the steps of MIT. I organized food service workers. On my PhD graduation, 20,000 people at MIT, I held up a sign, U.S. out of Iraq. People thought that was unpopular. Half the crowd booed me and the other half supported me. My point is, I've been involved in lots and lots of movements, okay? This movement, for 17 years, it has not gone among the broad mass of people. 90% of people still think vaccines are good, right?
Yeah. We haven't won that education battle just yet, although it's transforming.
Why? No. It's because the movement leaders have been top down. Okay, they have not. You know, when I got involved, we called the local movement here. They didn't want an outsider coming in because I was maybe taking away their views and their money. I don't know.
Right.
We didn't get paid for anything. We held an event here. 200 people showed up. 100 people. 200 people. We called a vaccine risk assessment conference. 650 people showed up. So I'm looking at this and wondering, what the hell were these other guys doing? I'm the new kid on the block. Okay.
Well, yeah, and that's why we're here today, and I'm learning about you, getting back to things that most people will they'll make blanket assessments based on emotional responses. I want more than that. And I ask, what is your goal? Because we need to ask each person who claims to be a leader or behaves as a leader in any movement, say, what is your goal? Let's be straight up about it. And if it is this, we go, well, that doesn't fit, or does that fit? Fine. Now we got clarity, and we could support certain aspects of that goal, maybe not everything. So I want to get to that clarity, that transparency. So if I ask, what is your goal, Dr. Shiva, in all of this? Is this to become a new leader? Some people would say, it's all about Dr.
Look, I made a promise, and this is going to sound very weird to people. I told you I left India on 1970, 7-year-old kid. In 1975, I went back to India because my dear grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was dying. Me and my mom went back. My mom went to take care of her mother, and I went back into the village with my grandparents. And then so remember, I'd been here in 5 years, and when I was leaving, I was at the train station, and that's when it like hit me like a ton of bricks that I would be going back to a completely different world. Here I was, bare streets, walking barefoot. My aunt lived in a little, 12-foot by 12-foot hut, had no money. Like, it just like hit me, okay? And my grandparents are there crying deeply, and I, as a 12-year-old kid, realized and said, I must do something for them and those working people I'm going back. Like, it was this deep, I can't tell you where it came from.
Yeah.
This promise that I made that I would do something, and that my going back to the United States was already such a gift, that I'd already been liberated. Okay. And this may be hard for people to appreciate. That moment has driven my life. And if people want to, so for me, it's about liberation at a deep, deep level, freedom, period. Because give you an example. I went back to India. I did my PhD in 2007. I came to MIT in 81, did 4 degrees in and out, started many companies, made a lot of money. In 2007, I went back, 2003, back to MIT at the age of 40 to do my PhD, finished it in 2007, where I invented a new technology for modeling molecular pathways. And in 2007, I won a Fulbright going back to India to study Indian medicine. In fact, on the front page of the official MIT newspaper, they feature me and they say, this is pretty wild. This guy's got 4 degrees and he wants to go back and study Indian medicine. When I went back to India, I made a profound discovery about the integration of Indian medicine and systems theory. I was getting ready to come back, Robbie, and I got recruited by the Prime Minister of India to run the largest innovation center in India. Okay. I got married at that time, and my father-in-law said, no one gets this kind of position. You should take it, and you could help serve India. So I took that position, and within 6 months, I found out all the corruption in the Indian government. I was at a huge bungalow, Robbie. Anyone would have, my father-in-law was like, keep your mouth shut. You'll be the Minister of Science and Technology. Well, I couldn't do that. I wrote a article which talked about the amazing scientists in India, how because of the corruption, they weren't able to produce anything. That article got leaked to the press under death threats. I had to leave India, at night on a 3rd-class train to the border of the Nepal and leave India and come home. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then an article came out in Nature. So you're looking at some guy who's risked his freaking life. So if people are wondering what my motivation is, I've already won, man. And I've had, I've had my set of spiritual experiences, which tells me that this body is not what life is all about. And we are each meant to be creators. And some people get to be creators, the Kennedys, and the other people don't. Some people get to be creators, the aristocrats, and the others don't. Some people get to contribute and the others don't. And that is really diminishing human progress. So I'm about liberation.
So you're about,
about
helping people to recognize that they can be creators. They don't have to accept their caste or lot in life.
Well, if you look at the works of the founders of this country, their goal was, whatever religious tradition you choose, this is you and this is your creator. The goal was to remove anything in between that so you can have a direct relationship with your creator, whatever you saw that as.
Mm-hmm.
You may see that as Jesus Christ, you may see that as nature, whatever, but the idea was to eliminate that. That's what the fundamental promise of this country was.
Sure.
For that matter, the fundamental promise of many of the great spiritual traditions.
Well,
and anything that came between that
mm-hmm.
was seen as a violation of truth.
And Dr. Shiva, I've argued that government has become the new God for many people. You know, they worship once a week, and then they worship government the rest of the time, or they worship the pharmaceutical church the rest of the time.
Or they worship Hollywood celebrities like
Sure.
George Clooney, who talks about climate change. The guy doesn't know shit about it.
Exactly.
Right?
Hey,
They
Dr. Shiva.
worship- Yeah.
Dude, I could go on for days, and I know, like, I got to get my daughter from school and stuff, and I don't know if you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and I hope that you'd consider coming back and discussing some more, because I think we've gotten some backstory that I was really anxious to get to understand what motivates you, and it's like you don't get that in sound bites. So this is a long form kind of interview, and you bore with it without with the technology and everything, and we got I think a great expose as far as from where we started to where we are now. So I'm greatly appreciative of your time, and I hope we can do it again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the big takeaway is, people want to know, I am running for U.S. Senate, but it's not a Senate campaign. It's a campaign for truth, freedom, and health. And my view is by winning in Massachusetts, it will send a shockwave across this country, because you're looking at the American dream, a kid who came from India with nothing, going through this journey. And we will typically probably be going against Joe Kennedy. So it's going to be interesting. The aristocracy versus a kid who actually worked for a living all of his life. And that's what I represent, everyone out there. And Massachusetts, by the way, Robbie, is the center of the deep state.
Yeah.
You have all the liberal intellectual elite come from here and they go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And this is the sewer that feeds a swamp in Washington, D.C. or elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's the center of corruption. So I've learned, like we just shared, from both sides. But I believe our Senate election goes at the heart of truth, freedom, and health. And you suppress freedom, you don't do science. And without science, we never can innovate real solutions for the health of our body, our society. And without health, we don't have the strength to fight for freedom. So it's truth, freedom, and health. So anyone listening, you should see our Senate campaign in Massachusetts not as a Massachusetts federal Senate campaign. It's a campaign for everyone out there, because I don't think a Joe Kennedy or a Kennedy represents you anymore. It's one of you, and that's who I am. And my winning would be a shockwave, I'm telling you, for everyone out there, because for the next 6 years, I'm only going to serve one term, is because you can't be here for re-election, because that's a whole mind trap. The goal is to serve one term and to do significant things in eliminating all the nonsense that goes on in science, so we get back to doing real science, not scientific consensus. It's to making sure that the Postal Service delivers us infrastructure so we could eliminate big tech censorship. And it's to make sure that we eliminate the middlemen in the healthcare system who are making $500 billion. So I have a very, very clear plan, grounded plan. But for people out there, everyone should support our campaign. And by the way, people support our campaign. I actually give them stuff. I give them a book. I give them how to teach them how their body is a system. When they give me something, I give back something.
Nice.
So go to Shiva for Senate, support our campaign, but you're supporting yourself, because a guy like me may never run again.
And we have it all linked up in the show notes at robertscottbell.com. I hope, and I know this has been challenging for some of my lovable and humble, loyal listeners. But again, the opportunity to challenge belief systems, perspectives, even comfort is, for me, it doesn't happen every day on the show. I have to kind of let everybody know my perspectives, and I don't have anybody to interact with in that regard. And Dr. Shiva has been game to join me, and I hope we can do this again. And if y'all have questions to submit them. And I think he is. We'll tackle them and engage further. And I hope you become the senator from Massachusetts. That would be a major watershed moment and transformation, not only for Massachusetts, but for the country.
Well, 2020, the first 20 years of any century, there's been a great anthropologist who did this analysis, is the inflection point. We can go into the golden age and we can go to a dark age. And with all humility, I would say that a guy like me winning in Massachusetts would give this country something that it sorely needs. It needs everyday people back in politics, back wanting to do change, not these career politicians. That's not what the founders wanted. So
will the liberal elites in Massachusetts finally,
and it's a multiracial liberal elite now.
Yeah, exactly. Will they put their money where their mouth is in terms of they love immigrants, except certain ones, right? It's the double speak.
Well, I'm
that
not
we
a
hear.
good Indian. You see, it doesn't fit their narrative.
Right, exactly. All right, Dr. Shiva.
All right.
Carry
Thanks,
on, my friend. I look forward to catching you next time. All right.
Okay, be well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Dude, did y'all survive that? I think that was great. I enjoyed engaging in a discussion like that. Of course, for those of you said, you should interrupt him. No, I want to hear from him. This opportunity to learn a different candidate, different perspective. And, if some of this stuff makes y'all uncomfortable, that's okay. And here, let me just share with you how my journey about becoming a homeopath, going out lecturing to my fellow Americans to teach them about a medicine I never knew of that was not reductionist and collectivist. And at first I was being, yelled at. Little old ladies would throw GMO tomatoes at me before there were GMO tomatoes, saying, you can't say that. And I'm like, oh, and rather than being upset by them, criticizing me, I actually, after the talk, would go up to them and say, what was it that I said? What happened? And I wanted to know how they were receiving the message. If it's important for you that people wake up and recognize, for instance, the danger of vaccines, that's just one thing. Find out how you're communicating and what they're perceiving you are saying, because you think you're saying one thing and it's landing a completely different way. And the only time we can get to that point is if we're willing to listen to somebody we disagree with. We might, or we didn't know if we agreed or disagreed. We don't know because we don't listen. And so for me, that was part of this great journey, and having Dr. Shiva on, the first of hopefully many times we can talk and engage and maybe have more discussion back and forth on this and many other things. So I will say that the way I've gotten good at communicating is by embracing criticism and critique. And I would ask anybody that is offended by, some of our friends that have been, called out for certain things, how I look in the mirror and say, hey, what's true about this? What's not? Something's resonating, not resonating. Ask sincerely. Because if you're really here for a purpose and a mission, you will take the criticism, not just blindly to destroy yourself. That's not the point, but to strengthen you on your purpose and mission. And not everybody on this mission has exactly the same methods to get there. And I think finding our bliss, finding our connection. And I think one of the most profound things that I got from Dr. Shiva, when he said about the go-between, and Super Don, you heard that at the end there, the go-between you and your creator. If that's not a fundamental agreement point, starting point, we can get into the woods and the weeds and the nuances from there. But to me, I had a sense that might be a prime motivating factor. Super Don, you were worried about ego-driven promotions and things. You got to have a strong ego to do what we do. There's the chicken we've been looking for.
That's the
chicken.
reaction we got in the chat room by quite a few people.
OMG. What happened? Are y'all still here? I can't believe anybody's still here. This is great. Y'all are still here. We got one thumbs down. But, I could go on, but I just sense that, there's a lot to do in one meeting, considering it started off a little chaotic with the technology, but he stuck with it. I got to give him props. He stuck with it and let it loose. Yeah. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right.
People don't hate.
I mean, that's got to be that this has got to be probably the most spirited conversation that we've had and discussion,
and it's
a
good
little
thing.
bit of snarky, bit of snarkiness going on in there with some people. But here's the reaction. I think that is what I would like most people to have as a result of this conversation. I'm going to keep my opinion out of it at the moment.
Okay.
But BX Cookie, this is what BX Cookie had to say. BX Cookie said, loved some, hated some, thought about some, now need to look up some. And that, honestly, listen, and you're right. Over the years, I'd have to say probably in the 15 years that you and I have been working together, I can't remember ever having a guest on the show like this, where it challenged people to the point. Some people, look, when some people get challenged on their beliefs, their opinions, they just go, screw you guys, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, you know what? Look, that's okay.
That's
I mean,
all right.
and people are entitled to
People
that.
got their limits, right?
Some people are like, holy crap, I don't know about this, but they listen. They listen, and at the end of the conversation, they may still disagree, but they enjoyed having the ability to be able to have their thoughts and their beliefs and their opinions challenged to a bit.
Sure.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, just because you had Dr. Shiva on the show does not mean that suddenly now Robert completely changed his opinion and his mind and believes completely differently and agrees with everything that was discussed.
Right. The stuff about, and I see a comment from about Bobby Kennedy, and that can be greatly upsetting. But there are fair criticisms to be brought up about Bobby Kennedy. That doesn't take away from the things that where we find great agreement. And I said we've got to be able to get over. There's so much vitriol in politics. Come on, you can't expect that. You come here, and I don't want to be an echo chamber, right? We a lot of us agree. You all that are watching agree. And it's an opportunity because it's not every day someone that we would have any discord with will come on a show to interact in this way. And my intent wasn't to come on and challenge him in any way necessarily, but to allow us to learn about what makes him tick. Speaking about TikTok, right? And I think we did a little bit of that. I think I've learned some things about him. Some of the things I kind of sensed were there and it went there. Other things I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I'll have to go back and re-listen, in fact, myself. But it isn't always supposed to be easy. And movements for freedom, especially, we have disagreement because in freedom, there has got to be disagreement or else it ain't freedom. The question is, do we value freedom more than we value the anger that can be brought up because of disagreement within freedom, right? And I've always tried, at least, to support those I disagree with the right to say it and even engage and say, you know what, we can disagree respectfully. In that regard. So don't be if you're a big fan of Bobby Kennedy, don't be too upset. I'm just saying that. You can be if you want to be. But take it with that proverbial grain of whatever. And, I think what motivates this guy underneath it all, that story back in India, what he saw and what he said at that moment set his life. I get that. I've had moments like that in my life. And it doesn't mean we have to agree with the way he's going about everything or you do. It just... there is something that genuinely motivates this guy to do what he's doing. It's not just, I don't perceive an artifice there.
Yeah, a lot of varying opinions here and stuff, and that's good, guys. And like I said, we want to bring these things to you and give you the opportunity to sound off, probably in a way that you never have as listeners to the show. There's nothing wrong with questioning things, because I think you should question everything all the time. And when you do question your beliefs, and you come back from that experience, that's not a bad thing.
No, not at all.
You may be stronger in your convictions and stuff like that, and we hope that we've had that positive experience for you. So I don't know about you, but I got to run, man.
Go. You hung out longer than you had to.
Hang out here. So listen.
And I will say this, because I know you got to go. I'm going to be doing another presentation tonight, or part of one, related to the Goldbacks. If I can go live, I will. You'll get notification, those of you who are signed on. If I can't because of the Wi-Fi being bad, then I'll record it and play it back at another time. So there may be another Robert Scott Bell Show, quote unquote, broadcast later. So Super Don, run along. I got a couple of more things to say to wrap it up, and
all right,
we'll catch up later. Okay.
I just want to let you know that this has been a great show, Robbie. and I've really appreciated it.
Yes.
And I'm
Nobody's
looking
ever done
forward
that.
to tomorrow's episode of the Robbie Scott Bell Show.
Oh, you're so funny. You're so funny. Thank you, Super Don. Carry on. Move along. Nothing to see here. I want to say again, because I'm sensitive. I am about his critiques of friends. Right? You have friends in the movement, and yet there can be legitimate critique of friends. You could have legitimate critiques of me that could make me uncomfortable. And look, I'm okay with that. I know it doesn't always come through that way, but it's different from a skeptic just kind of complaining and griping and bitching and moaning. But when you have, just my perspective on Shiva about his view of the caste system and elitist, you look at the Kennedy family and they're like the royal family of American politics. And there's going to be something that rubs you the wrong way coming from a background like Shiva. Now, I'm not saying it's right, wrong, neutral, indifferent. I'm just saying the perspective he has. That's why I wanted to go and allow him to communicate the things he's experienced to lead to where he has that perception and perspective. Because there are comments about the High Wire. It cannot operate as a top flight weekly show with all of the incredible, what would you call it? I don't say technology, but I can't think of the word, but it's like top level presentation without money. And if you have a donor and that donor is no longer there, you've got to find a way to raise money. I get it. And of course, that could be, hey, you're promoting your own show, and everybody's got to make a living to do what their bliss is. And so I don't begrudge Dell. I only wish him the best of success. And Bobby Kennedy with his perspective on wanting safer vaccines. Look, I may disagree that there is such a thing ever as a safe vaccine unless you go into homeoprophylaxis. But what he's bringing out and challenging the authoritarians on vaccines and pointing out the lack of scientific, I can't find fault with that. I'm happy to support it. And yes, we disagree politically on a lot of things. And you bring up the discomfort, uncomfortable things about supporting Hillary Clinton. Yeah, that's a big problem. She's a globalist. She's an elitist. She would sacrifice anybody's child to get ahead. And so why would someone like that? Because the Democrats are better. That's a legitimate critique or criticism. Maybe uncomfortable, but I think we're still friendly. As my buddy Ty Bollinger and family, very much in support of Trump for the most part. And look at Bobby Kennedy, not a big fan of Trump. And yet on where we find alignment in mission and purpose, we cross paths and we go, hey, like Ron Paul, great example. Guy who believed in individual liberty, believes in individual liberty and limiting government like the founding fathers, maybe even more so than them in some ways. And he found ways to work with even Bernie Sanders when they found something in common. Am I a Bernie fan? Absolutely not. Socialism is force and violence. It's extraordinarily repulsive, as is communism. There were things that I didn't get to talk to Dr. Shiva about regarding collectivist movements for workers that, truly in some ways enhanced or made better the work environment. How can we describe other ways to get there without the heavy hand of government force? These are legitimate discussions that can be had. What we're dealing with is history as it happened, interpretations of history, and I dig it. I'm not the expert in everything, never claimed to be, but I am always willing to learn, and I hope you are too. And I hope overall, even if you were a little perturbed by some of the things that were communicated today, that you'll understand the reasons and motivations for me to bring this about, to have the opportunity to share and talk and just listen and learn, and then we get to make up our own minds about it. And I look forward to hearing more from you all about what you witnessed today and how we can be better when we confront uncomfortable perceptions about ourselves or about others that we perceive, we love, we care about, their friends or part of the movement, and that we could self-efface. We could look in the mirror and go, all right, let's see, I could do better here, right? And that's the point of how am I doing what I'm doing all these years later in broadcast media or in life in general? Because I embraced the criticisms. And I said, let me look at this honestly. There were some criticisms that maybe it wasn't real. Maybe somebody was just mad. And that's, you begin to distinguish that. But if you dismiss all critique because you don't like the way it makes you feel or I would ask you to get beyond that if you aren't yet. That's all I'm saying. So let's see. BX Cookie, glad you enjoyed it. V Science Bites better. That's fine. You can like the other stuff better. We don't do this every day. I mean, my goodness, you asked for a 3-hour show. We practically delivered it to you. I'm 10 minutes shy of going 3 hours, and I'm not intending to go more because I've got to reset for a remote today, a little later. And tomorrow, by the way, I've got a announcement. It's not in the notes, but our friends at Healing Strong, they have chapters all over the country. And I've been invited to speak on homeopathy primarily, but you know how it is. I'll pepper everything into it tomorrow evening for Healing Strong. And I think they're going to stream it. So I got to work on that too. There's a lot of stuff I got to do off the air. So namely Liberty, thank you. Thank you everybody for sticking around. And again, hopefully nobody got banned by Super Don. But, you know, obviously if you attack people, that's not what we're all about. But you can engage in ideas and discourse and discord even and disagreements. I don't mind that. That's like I've got a buddy of mine who I've known for many years who's really got a good heart, but he's a die-hard Democrat liberal, hates everything Republican. And I'm like, it's disgusting, honestly. But I've not banned him on Facebook. And even when he's attacked, and I'm like, look, I'd rather have people disagree and let's find out more about what drove them to that and understand it. And it's sometimes uncomfortable. But I try not to, unless you're a skeptic and you're just doing stupid stuff. Then it's like, what's the point? That's not engaging in any proactive way. So, Javalili, it all boils down to freedom. Whoever supports that is a friend of mine. Exactly. So defending the liberty, even of those of you, with whom you disagree, as long as they don't argue to use the power and force and violence of government to restrict your freedom. That's where we all draw the line, isn't it? I think. Anyway, I appreciate it. I'm just looking at these comments here. Cloudy Day 92, thank you as well. Thumbs up, y'all. Keep giving them. Keep sharing the show. Let's see. Anyway, and if you have legitimate criticisms, I mean, it's not just born of I'm angry at you. You know, you could be angry. That's fine. Let me know, and I'll have them back on and ask some questions that you're intrigued and interested in knowing about. But today was the day of I wanted him on here to let loose on, his background, what drives him, what motivates him. And I think I certainly learned some things. I hope you did too. Anyway, and I don't like Bobby Kennedy any less than I did before the show. Just to know, I get where he's coming from for the most part. There are things I disagree with him about. I love Dale Bigtree like a brother. Just Polly Tommy, I love you like a sister. Yeah, and the whole Tommy family. So, but again, I'm not going to ban somebody because they've critiqued my friends or said things about them. And I hope that you wouldn't either, that you would engage in some way and learn more. And we're okay. We can survive another day, even if people say not so nice things about us or about me. And that asks us to be a little bit bigger and recognize it's not about our ego as much as it is about what's really important. What is the end goal? Right. And again, we may have alignment there. We might have subtle differences and distinctions. But maybe I ask too much. But I ask of myself. So take that as you will and reject that which you don't like. So thank you all. I'm just rambling now. And I could keep rambling, but I've got other stuff I got to do. And don't call me Robbie. That's going to be the new thing. Robbie. Everybody's going to call me. There was one other woman that called me Robbie. A sweet. She's a very sciencey person too. She was originally from North Africa. What is that? Marrakesh. That is called not Libya, is it? Yeah, I'm sorry. It's all the things that I just forget. One country in North Africa. This is so silly. Never mind. It's just too much. Unless you throw it out to me right now. Anyway, but she would call me Robbie. She's French, and she would say Robbie, and it was like it rolled off in a not offensive way. People that call me Bob or Bobby, I'm going to draw the line there. I'm just going to tell you, I've got my limitations too. So Morocco, thank you, honey. That was the word I was looking for. From Morocco. She's from Morocco, and she's so sweet. But she calls me Robbie. It's a term of endearment in that context. I take it that way. But Bob and Bobby. No, that's not me. Just saying. I'm just saying. Unless you want to annoy me. Scotty, I can handle Scotty. My mom calls me Scotty. You know that too. Hi, Mom. I love you too. And again, happy birthday. Y'all get, and we'll try and coordinate if my mom can do the technology. We'll have to test it out before the 29th when she becomes 86. And her book will talk about her journey from Israel to America, Life of Many Colors, if you haven't got my mom's biography as well. So, First Amendment, yep. Pushing it all. 3 hours. That's what it's like. I hope you handled it well. Happy birthday to my mom, too, in advance. So thank y'all. I'm going to play Mickey-friendly out music, and we're going to sign off. Thank you. May the blessings be. The power to heal is yours.